Hi, Derek.
Good evening, everybody. We'll just wait just another minute or two to give people a chance to join us, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, we got a steady flow of people joining.
All right, we'll give them a chance to join the room, and then we'll begin. Thank you.
I get back. I'm here. I got
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson Anthony.
Good evening, Commissioner Pinckney.
How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. A little steamy on this July day, but doing well otherwise.
Yes. Well, before we start, I sent an email to everybody, condolences to poor D, but I want to confirm that the information I had gotten wasn't totally accurate. There is what do you call it? They are having a vigil tomorrow, but the bike rider, it was not a vehicular issue. The bike rider had gotten robbed at gunpoint and killed, and that is why, that is how he died. It was not in reference to bike riding and vehicles or lanes or anything like that.
Thank you for sharing, Commissioner Pinckney. I haven't heard any information myself, but I'm not sure if anyone else has, but thank you for sharing that.
I just got off the phone with the chairman of 4B. It's 4B. Okay.
Well, it looks like we have a decent group here, so why don't we get started? It is 6:33 by my watch, so we'll get started this evening. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the monthly meeting of ANC 4D. My name is Anthony Parati. I am the ANC Commissioner for 4D08, and I will be chairing tonight's hearing. If you are a regular attendee of our ANC meetings, thank you for coming back. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. We're glad to have you here. These are an opportunity for us to get together as a neighborhood and as a community to talk about where we live and ways that we can make life a little bit better up here in 4D. We have a pretty lengthy agenda tonight. We'll try our best to get through it in a fairly expeditious manner. To make that happen, I'd like to ask for everyone's help. First of all, please mute yourself if you are not speaking. This way we don't have other noise interfering with the conversation. If you would like to speak during the meeting, please use the raise hand function if possible, and we will call on you. If you are on your phone and not on Zoom and you are dialing in, then at some point I will call out and see if anyone else is available or anyone else is there who needs to speak, who has not, and you can just jump in the conversation then. But I promise we will do our best to make sure that everybody gets heard tonight. To ensure that everybody has a chance to speak and we get through all of our agenda items, I'd also ask for your cooperation in trying to move expeditiously through your comments. So both for commissioners and for the general public, if you could try to keep your comments concise and to the point, and that will help us make sure that everybody gets a chance to participate tonight. So with that said, first order of business is we will take a roll call. And so Secretary George, would you like to take attendance?
Sure. Well, commissioners who are present, please say present. Commissioner Pinckney.
Present.
Commissioner Judson.
Present.
Commissioner Lucarelli.
Present.
Commissioner Corniatis.
Present.
Commissioner Morensic.
Present.
Commissioner George is present. Commissioner Weigel.
Present.
And Commissioner Parati.
Present. And we have a quorum so that we can begin. Next up, we have the approval of tonight's agenda. I understand that there are a couple of changes. So Secretary George, would you like to walk us through those changes?
Yes. Well, what were the changes? So the one change that we need to vote on is there is a resolution concerning the installation of speed bumps on the 4800 block of 7th Street. Our standing rules require that if a new resolution is introduced within 7 days of the meeting, it must be for good cause and requires a 2/3 vote of the commission in order for it to be tabled for debate. In this case, it is my resolution, and the good cause was that we received word from DDOT very late last week inside that 7-day window that they would need a resolution from us in order to move forward with this project. And so I think that is the main change in the agenda that we need to vote on. Is anyone else aware of? Oh, and then one other one, actually. This one we don't need to vote on, but I know Commissioner Pirati has a matter related to the National Links Trust that we need to discuss. So perhaps it makes sense to vote first on the tabling of the speed bump resolution, and then we can vote on the adoption of the agenda as a whole.
That makes perfect sense.
One quick addendum, one quick add. In the 11th hour, we received our Q3 quarterly financial report. So we also need to vote on that this evening.
Okay.
So let's, excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Cornelius. So,
Another, please.
yes, Commissioner Pinckney.
There are two people from Janice's office who will talk about Kennedy and crime. So I don't know if you'd want to put them in the speaker box for official speaking or not. Or should we
Yeah,
put it?
I can add them to the council member's office comments that we have in the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinckney. So as Commissioner George said, because the resolution was added to the agenda within a week, we have to vote. 2/3 of the commissioners have to support adding it to the agenda. Just to clarify, this is not a vote for the resolution. It's just a vote to get the resolution on the agenda to discuss tonight. So I will do a roll call vote. And what commissioners, when I call your name, just say aye if you approve adding it to the agenda, nay if you do not. Commissioner Pinckney.
Aye.
Commissioner Judson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli.
Aye.
Commissioner Corniotis.
Aye.
Commissioner Morensic.
Aye.
Commissioner George.
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel.
Aye.
And I am also a Y, so the addition to the agenda is approved unanimously. So because we have a number of additions, we will just take one more vote for the agenda as a whole. Are there any objections to any of the items on the agenda? Or any discussion points? Okay, we'll just do a quick roll call vote then to approve the agenda as a whole with the various additions as well, which include the National Links Trust and the members from Representative Janice Lewis George's office. So again, we're just approving of the agenda. So Commissioner Pinckney,
Yes.
Commissioner Judson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucarelli,
Yes.
Commissioner Corniotis,
Yes.
Commissioner Morensic,
Yes.
Commissioner George,
Yes.
Commissioner Weigel,
Yeah.
and I'm a yes as well. So the agenda is approved unanimously. Next up, we have minutes from last month's meeting. Anything special that we should know, Commissioner George?
Nothing special. What we have on the website is the version that we will vote on.
Are there any corrections or additions or emendations from any of the commissioners?
Yes. I would,
Commissioner Pinckney.
yes. I would like for the secretary to make a note. I noticed that on several of the minutes, I've been listed as being late, but I just want to put to the record that because I'm in dialysis 2 days a week, I can only go to my medical appointments on Mondays and Wednesdays. And so it is for that reason that I may be late. And I just didn't want the record from January to now to show as if I'm laxing on being on time.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinckney. I mostly just try to reflect what we have at the time of roll call and note that you joined shortly thereafter, which is what the minutes reflect. If you
No,
prefer,
no,
I'm
sir,
not-
because it is a requirement that we attend these meetings. And because you when you write your minutes, annotate it as if it is a stenographer type of writing. If someone were to come back and look at it, it looks like I'm just always late. So I need that point to be made, because I'm not just late because I take my job in a lackadaisical way. So I want it put in the record to show, because I always, if I'm going to be late, contact the chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Judson has a point to make.
Yes, I apologize. This is back on the agenda. But I see that Brian Hammer is on from the Kennedy, and we had discussed having him present tonight, and I wanted to just see if there's an opportunity. Brian, I don't know how long you need, if you can present during community comments or if you need more time. But if you do need more time, I want to make sure that you get that space tonight. And apologies, that's an oversight on the agenda.
It's on the agenda in new business. It's just a long.
It is? Oh, okay.
agenda.
I'm
I should
sorry.
understand missing
Okay,
it.
I didn't, yep, we're good. False
I don't
alarm.
need that much time, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Amon, appreciate it.
To go back to Commissioner Pinckney's point, Secretary George, is that a change that you would prefer us to vote on, or is that a change that you prefer to make without objection?
I don't feel a need to vote on it. I just want to be clear on how we're noting it, because the purpose of listing the roll call is to make sure that in the agenda, when we say that we determined that we had quorum, it's because we called roll and we had quorum based on the number of commissioners who were there, so that we could begin the meeting. I am happy. So would it be possible to vote to approve the minutes, and maybe we can connect offline about exactly how to notate
Yeah.
that one point?
Yes, I am amenable to that. We can discuss that next month at our meeting.
Okay, so without any, are there any further objections or changes to the minutes? Okay, so without any further objections or changes to the minutes are approved by unanimous consent then and moved into the record, and Commissioner George and Commissioner Pinckney will discuss offline about how to correctly note Commissioner Pinckney's arrival time, or how best to note it moving forward. So thank you all. Excellent. Okay. Next up, we have the treasurer's report. So Treasurer Corniotis, the floor is yours.
Yeah, something's happening with my video here. I don't know what's happening exactly, but I can't get off of, but anyway, good evening, everybody. This month, we need as a commission to approve the third quarterly financial report. The balance remains $8,944.42. As a commission, we are still assessing sort of the grant process as a whole, but we will be considering the Petworth Blooms grant this evening, as well as Commissioner George and I went to visit the venue for our upcoming hybrid meeting in the fall. And as a commission, we plan to discuss the budget, potentially the budget needed to accurately and effectively facilitate the meetings in a hybrid fashion. And in addition to that, I am working quite closely with the Office of ANCs to hopefully get our quarterly allotments distributed in a more efficient way moving forward. So in the fall, as a commission, we aim to be able to award additional grantees, given that our treasury will be in a better health perspective.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions for Commissioner Cornelius on the budget? First from commissioners. Hearing none, are there any questions from the general public? Hearing none. Commissioner Cornelius, did you have two items that you wanted us to vote on? Oh, first I have a question from neighbor Zilla Wesley.
Yes, thank you. I just have a quick question. What is meant by if in the fall when the budget is in, I think I heard in better condition, or what does that mean?
So, thank you for the question, Zilla. Basically, each commission is supposed to receive quarterly allotments from the office of ANC. And as long as we submit the quarterly financial report and supporting documentation, and we have done so, but we have not received any allotment to date. And so it's hard to budget and award grants when our budget does not align to what was, or our treasury does not align to what was budgeted by our predecessors. So that's what that means.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Commissioner Cornelius?
Yes, I'm sorry, this is Joy Pinckney. What is it that the rest of us can do to try to expedite or alleviate this problem? Because now we're here, what, is this third quarter coming up? And we still don't have our allotments. So there must be a reason, either on their end or something, but I don't feel that this is acceptable.
Well, I've written to the director of the Office of ANCs, as well as Don Dickerson, who assists with the treasury component of the commission. And I think it's an issue throughout the city and each commission. It's not just us. And I'm not quite sure what I guess we could as a commission write to them again and try to maybe get a meeting on the books, but it's not just solely a 4D problem.
Okay, so again, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner George?
I think my understanding from previous commissioners is it's not just a 4D problem, and it's also not a recent problem. There's just been a long-standing disbursements from the city are unpredictable, and the best thing we can do is make sure all our paperwork is correct and up to date on time, and then hope that disbursements happen quickly. Commissioner Cornelius, if we're voting on the QFR, are you able to like screen share it with us?
Yes, sir. But I need to be enabled to do so.
Oh, okay, sure. This is Commissioner LaGurley. Yeah, let me grant you permissions.
While we're doing that, working out the technology, I see a question from neighbor Chandler.
Yes, what is the venue that she's investigating, the location, and is it for the in-person meetings?
Yeah, so the plan is, and this is something we were going to announce a little bit later, we're going to experiment with doing a hybrid meeting in September. So we'll be meeting in person at Latin Charter School, which was where we used to have the meetings before COVID. We'll also have an online option. So if you're not able to, or you don't feel like coming over in person, you'll still be able to dial into the meeting just like you're doing tonight. And so we are going to buy a few pieces of equipment so that we're able to broadcast from Latin Charter School, and people will be able to see us and hear us from the school. That's the plan, at least.
Thank you.
Sure. Commissioner Cornelius, do you want to talk us through the financial report?
Yes. So basically, as I said previously, The balance remains $8,944.42. There was an adjustment of $965.84 to account for the difference between what the Office of ANCs had on record to what we actually have in our treasury at Industrial Bank. And as I stated earlier, the balance remains $8,944.42. And I'm working diligently with the Office of ANCs to make sure that we receive at least one, if not two, of our quarterly allotments in the next few weeks.
So just to clarify, Commissioner Cornelius, it looks to me like there's really nothing there because we haven't spent any money. So this is a relatively simple quarterly report. Am I reading it correctly?
Correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Pinckney, question?
Yes, so how much is it that we're waiting to receive if you total both of the allotments?
Each allotment is approximately $5,000 or so. It depends on sort of what's budgeted for through the Office of ANCs, but in our case, it's $5,000 per quarter, unless we're being penalized. For example, if a grant, there's an amount in a grant that's outstanding, then they deduct that amount from the allocation.
Yes, but we don't have anything else outstanding. I know that because you and I worked on it. So,
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cornelius, are you ready for us to vote on the quarterly report?
Yes.
Excellent. If there are no other questions from commissioners, we will take a vote. So commissioners, we are voting to approve the quarterly report. So when I call your name, just say aye if you approve, nay if you do not. Commissioner Pinckney.
Aye.
Commissioner Judson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli.
Aye.
Commissioner Cornelius.
Aye.
Commissioner Marancic.
Aye.
Commissioner George.
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel.
Aye.
And I'm also a Y, an I. Wrong letter. Commissioner Cornelius, did you have another resolution that you wanted to introduce about spending for equipment for Latin Charter?
I believe that Commissioner George has drafted a budget that we, as a commission in August, when we meet, will discuss further. I don't believe we need to vote on that this evening.
Do we need to vote in order to be able to spend that money between now and September? We need to vote to approve the expenditure, right?
I believe that's correct, Commissioner George.
Yes. So let's do that.
So how, just to be clarified then, how much are we voting to allocate for equipment for Latin Charter?
My recommendation was that we approve a budget right now of $1,500, subject to kind of two caveats. One, we will plan to discuss further and in more detail at our next executive meeting in early August before actually making any expenditures. And that number is purposely overshooting kind of realistically what I think we will spend in order to make sure that we have ample budget to buy what we need ahead of September's meeting, since we won't have another opportunity to approve any expenditures between now and then.
Thank you, Commissioner George. So just to clarify again for the public, the authorizing the $1,500 doesn't require us to spend the $1,500. It doesn't mean we will spend $1,500. It just gives us permission to spend up to $1,500 if we need to for the equipment. So questions from commissioners first. Commissioner Pinckney.
Yes, so this would be, we currently have a budget, which is a living document. So we would be taking this from the line item for other things, because is there a line item in our existing budget for equipment? CC? Do you know?
Yes, there is a relatively small amount.
How much is that?
$500, I believe.
Okay. So what you're saying is, Mr. Chair, that we're not to talk about what the equipment that he wants to buy. We will debate that next month. We're just talking about setting aside this amount of money. So that means taking it out of the line item, I guess, for miscellaneous things in our budget and putting it in the line item for equipment. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure where Commissioner Cornelius is thinking about where the money, what line item would come from. I know specifically we budgeted, or the previous commission budgeted quite a lot of money for communications. And I don't believe that we've spent anywhere close to the amount of money that has been budgeted for that. So I believe, and Commissioner Cornelius knows this better than I do, I believe we have quite a balance there, that and taking this money from that line shouldn't impact us too much. But Commissioner Cornelius, am I correct in that, or am I mistaken?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Okay, so how much money do we have in that line item?
I think we have, I'm gonna paste the budget in. I think we have $8,000 approved for FY23 for communication. Plus
Okay,
another 4,500 for purchase of service. I'm not sure what that covers.
okay, well,
But
that's,
anyway, we'll
so-
find it.
yeah, so that's cool. So, so we're not really asking for approval to what to spend it on, because the budget was already approved. We're just letting the public know that we're planning to do it and for what. Is that correct? Because anything, the budget has already been approved, so we don't need to vote to allocate the money, because the money is already allocated in our budget.
I believe we still do need to vote to allocate the money, just as we do for approving grants. We have
No.
money budget for grants, but grants themselves need to be approved, right?
But that's only because the grantees need to show what they're going to do, use the money for. But under a budgeting situation, if we've budgeted for communications and equipment, then we don't have to bring it back for another approval. We just have to account for it in the treasurer's, or actually the financial secretary, the outline and the information at the end of the year or quarterly about where the money was spent and how much.
That is correct, I believe, Commissioner Pinckney.
Yeah.
I think the only question that I would have for Commissioner Cornelius is whether or not this falls under the category of communication. If so, then as Commissioner Pinckney noted, we don't need to vote separately. If this is coming out separately, then I think we probably would need to authorize it. So Commissioner Cornelius, does this come from an existing line, or are we voting to set aside separate funds for this?
This comes from an existing line.
Okay, so in that case, I think Commissioner Pinckney is correct. I don't think that we need to vote because the money has already been allocated by the commission for this express purpose. And so we don't need a second vote on it.
Right, the only thing we need to vote on or to agree to in the commission is what is going to be bought.
Correct. So with no other questions from either commissioners or the public, then we can move on to the next agenda item. Unless Commissioner Cornelius, anything else that we need to cover from a treasury perspective?
No, that's all for this evening. Thank you.
Excellent. So we will move on to comments from city officials. We will start with the representative from the mayor's office, Mr. Derek Johnson. You have the floor for the next 10 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I was trying to start my video, but I have a Zoom prompt that says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
I'm getting the same prompt.
Yeah, that's the same prompt I'm receiving, Mr. Johnson.
What does it say?
It says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Host has stopped it. Well,
I mean, I don't have a problem giving the report. I was gonna get on video, but either way, if for the sake of time, I can start the presentation. Okay, so I'll start. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak for the mayor on this evening. And I wanted to start with some great news that the mayor announced that she named Pamela A. Smith as the new acting chief of police, pending a vote by council, but pending a vote by council, the Metropolitan Police Department will have a new acting chief who is the first African-American woman named to that post. And so it's a historical moment. And we also know that given the environment we're in now, it's an important role for public safety. And so Chief Smith has a distinguished 25-year career in law enforcement, including serving as the chief of police for the United States Park Police here in DC. She has also worked with equity and being the chief equity officer for the executive office of the chief police for the U.S. Park Police Service. And so what we know is that she's committed to the cause. I don't know if anyone got to hear her remarks, but she's also a minister. And so she touched a lot of heartstrings with her opening statement. And I just wanted to note for you all her commitment and the mayor's commitment to public safety. I know we'll have some further discussion about that tonight from the council's office. And then likewise, I wanted to note that the Mayor's Office of African Affairs is going to present Mandela Day of Service community cleanup on this weekend, July 22nd, and that will be starting at the Anacostia Library at 9:30 a.m. For anyone who's interested in the Mandela Day of Service. Likewise, I wanted to mention some exciting news for our Ward 4 residents in 4D, especially the Department of Recs and Parks and Recs rather, has the Jazz in the Park series, and that series has been awesome. And it starts Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. And coming coming up Saturday, July 22nd, Shepherd Park Community Center at will be hosting, and then Petworth Recreation Center will be hosting on July 29th. I will put the addresses and locations in the chat in a moment. And lastly, I'll say that the Mayor's Office of Innovation Job Seekers is soliciting feedback. They're going to have a feedback session calling for DC residents who have or are pursuing jobs with the district government to join the session. One is going to be held in July 24th in Shaw, and then July 25th, there's going to be another in Anacostia, but Washingtonians are welcome to share their input on improving DC's recruitment and hiring process. And I'll put the link how you can RSVP or join that meeting coming up this next week. And so I think that concludes all of my comments, but I also wanted to say I look forward to working with you all coming up, and especially Commissioners Hudson and Pickney to discuss the Ward 4 library. And then I'll be quiet and open the floor to any questions you all may have.
Thank you as always, Mr. Johnson. Questions for Mr. Johnson, first from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Cornelius.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson. How are you?
Hi, Commissioner.
I have one question about the recent appointment of Chief Smith. Is that correct, Pamela Smith?
Yes.
When the prior chief left, the mayor stated that it would be sort of a national search conducted to identify and appoint the next chief. Was it actually a national search, and was Pamela Smith chosen based on that national search? That's my first question. My second question has the after action report been from our public safety walk back in February, I believe? Is that still not being shared publicly?
So the first question about the national search, we got that question on the day of the announcement from one of the press, and Deputy Chief Apaya did painstakingly lay out that the search was a national search, and she had dozens of candidates that she had both internally and externally reviewed. I know that the city and the mayor and the deputy mayor took very seriously the concerns of the public when we held teleconference, teletown hall, and then also participation of the public with interest in public safety bills that the council had voted upon. And so what I know is that in good faith, I do believe the deputy mayor when she said that, in fact, it was a national search. And with regard to the second question, I don't think that the report is one that was planned to be public. I've asked a couple of times, and I think the response is that it was a public safety walk, yes. However, it was also a opportunity for the agencies to in real time hear the concerns, and internally those agencies have followed up. Mokers and the mayor's office did not produce a public report for consumption. I know that we've held meetings and had some after action follow-up in terms of our Hive team with DPW going out to Georgia Avenue to fix some of the issues that were raised by the public during the walk. And I know they remain committed to that. So what I do is work with all of these agencies in a core team, and we have a core team meeting monthly, and I coordinate with the agencies. They all have outreach specialists for Ward 4, and so I'm looking for opportunities and ways to better involve commissioners in getting our voices heard from our neighbors. And so, like the opportunity you and I have discussed about planning a walk with some of the agencies to hone in on specific SMDs and target some of the needs. And so what I want to do is in lieu of looking backwards at the after action report, figure out how we can be helpful moving forward as well. And so I welcome conversation and additional questions about ways I can be more proactive in my role to assist with getting some of the neighborhood issues resolved.
The only reason I continue to ask this question is twofold. One is, I think as a community, there was this public safety walk conducted where the mayor did, in fact, at the end of the walk, state that there would be an after action report that was going to be shared with us. So that's one. But two, I think it's information as a community that we deserve to know. And thus I will look into potentially submitting a FOIA request as well.
No, I appreciate that. We play our individual roles in the government, and so I welcome you to do that. But I do say I still want to offer that I will be in community with you all and want to figure out ways how I can be helpful moving forward too.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We very much, I don't want to speak for all of us, but I very much enjoy working with you and look forward to doing the same as the months progress.
Thank you. Thank you.
Question from Commissioner Pinckney.
Yes, good evening, Derek.
Hi, Commissioner. Pinckney.
I'm asking, I have one specific question. I'm very excited to see you tomorrow at our meeting, but here in my SMD, and specifically near my building, and with some of these newer buildings going up, we're going to talk about our little four-legged friends that we don't really call friends, talking about our rats. Now, we're a new building, but we're right next to a restaurant. We don't have to resolve this today, but there are places, we have apartments behind us, but the alleyway is behind them, and we're at that alleyway. And the receptacles for the trash and garbage are just like regular trash cans people put in their homes. We need the city to bring trash cans, acceptable trash receptacles to put back there, because rats and mice can burrow through concrete. We're a brand new building, and we've been talking about this issue. So I'm just putting this on your plate now, so I wouldn't hit you tomorrow. But maybe tomorrow you can do a walkthrough over there as well. But what do you do about these new buildings that go up and, adjacent to alleyways that haven't really been serviced before, probably not really on the radar? Is there something you all can do for a short?
So I know that we can always make 311 requests for rat abatement. However, that is a process that you embark upon, and once you put the request in, it takes a while. So what I can do is highlight for our hive team and sweeps teams, which are the sanitation teams, and get DOB to come out as well. I've done this recently at an older building, but they were able to come out pretty quickly within a week or so and do a abatement at that location. And so we can talk offline if you can get the address. And then the second thing was, what I'm hearing is that you may need super cans. And I do believe I ran into some information regarding requesting super cans, especially if you're a newer building and you haven't had them before. It's not something that I've run into in terms of a newer building, but like you said, rats can burrow, especially with the restaurant very nearby. So what I can do is I've taken some notes. I'll follow up with you offline to get the exact locations, but also see about, like I said, getting some DOB and also DPW folks out to see the area as well, so that they can get their teams to start working on it sooner rather than later, even if we do still put in a 311 request.
Yes, because I spoke with the head lady in terms of the trash can distribution throughout the city, and the city had run out of trash cans at one point. So that's why I bring it to you. So maybe with your help, we can get this taken care of. Thank you.
No, and I appreciate the question. Moker's Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services has a new director, and he's great, Richard Livingston. He was a former Moker himself, and so he's very keen to, I'm new in the role, but he's very keen to exactly the connections that we can make through the agencies, and so I want to be helpful in that way. I will definitely put this on our internal radar and then follow up with you to get some deliverables.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I don't know how to raise my hand, but I just want to kind of piggyback off of that since we have Derek's here. Would that be all right?
Sure, go ahead. Commissioner Judson, would you mind holding off for a moment?
I completely agree about the vermin situation, and I think it's a broader issue. And so I may talk with my commissioners after the summer recess if there's an opportunity to do a pilot or some sort of test kitchen experiment up here, because Kennedy Street and 4D moreover are kind of a microcosm of the greater DC. We have a little bit of everything. These suburban style trash cans don't work. And, you know, we're living out the definition of insanity by thinking that a can that a rat can literally gnaw through in a matter of one night is going to solve urban trash problems, especially in 4D. Sorry, so especially in 4D where we're seeing so much growth. And I think that that's why it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue. There's a lot of construction in the pipeline here. I mean, on Kennedy Street alone, there's over 200 apartments in the pipeline. And so, you know, I welcome the new neighbors, but, you know, I don't welcome the ones that have four legs. And so we need to do away with this plastic garbage can situation and move into the 21st century and do things like they do in other cities. New York City is starting to do it because, you know, I mean, you know, for obvious reasons. I mean, we need to have large community collection bins that are solid metal that cannot be penetrated by any rodent or vermin, that seal shut, but that are easy to use so that anybody, you know, disabled or otherwise can use it. But, you know, and that's just something that I hope and desire you convey at high levels, because it's just not working. I mean, I don't take my trash out at night because, you know, I'm afraid of being bit. So anyways, I know you get it. So,
yeah, no, I hear you, and I've heard that multiple times from elderly to what I know is that and I don't want to give misinformation. I know that there was a redesign in the works for the super cans, and I don't want to misattribute where they are in the process and what that looks like for rollout. But what I can do is be in conversation with DPW, and maybe it's something that we can actually have DPW come and do a presentation if at the time that they're ready to discuss, because like you said, 4D is a microcosm of the greater district. And so I think a test pilot opportunity would be something that will be a great fresh idea. So let's be in conversation. I have notes. I'm going to take these back to my director tonight, and I will definitely be in following up with both you and Commissioner Pickney on this.
great, thanks. You know, just to put it into perspective, I live a few doors down from Ancho on the 700 block of Kennedy Street. They're using plastic garbage cans. This is a restaurant that produces commercial waste. I mean, you know, and I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm just speaking to how serious the issue is. It's not that they're doing something wrong per se. It's just that we got to move away from this model. It's not working. And it really is a big issue. I mean, you don't want to be bit by these things, and you certainly don't want them in your yard because they're really a hazard. Anyways, thank you.
No, thank you.
And Derek, I apologize, but I also want to stress that even with, you know, the public listening, we have to now, you know, I started in January, and here we now are in July. And we're still answering the questions about rodents, talking about things, talking about working on things. When at this point, I would encourage you and the mayor's office to ask them to show something. Okay, now there are, you know, and when new businesses open up, there should be a training about strictly how to get rid of their garbage, because the rats don't come unless it's food. Okay. And those businesses should not even think about putting their trash in regular trash cans. You know, that should not even be an option. And they should be required to have, you know, something else. So we would just like for them to let us know what their bottom line is. When are they expected to roll out these receptacles? Because you can't keep working and working and working. We'll be from now till the end of my term still waiting on some relief from the rats. And I say that with love and affection.
No,
But I would appreciate you sharing that we are pretty urgent with this request.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Commissioner Judson, and then in the interest of time, if it's okay, let's have this be the last question from commissioners, and then other commissioners can maybe follow up with Mr. Johnson separately, because I want to make sure that the public has a chance to ask questions as well. Is Commissioner Judson?
Yes, thank you. And hi, Derek, good to see you. I will keep this brief because I know we have a packed agenda. So I just wanted to flag 501 Kennedy Street. It's at the northwest corner of that intersection. It's been a blighted property for many years, and it's becoming this like dumping ground, and folks are just leaving all sorts of, there was a mattress there the other day. And so I feel like a lot of my job is just flagging and putting in 311 requests, but I wanted to elevate it to you because at a certain point, it's like, what's going to happen? Like there has to be something more efficient and effective than having 311 alert DPW and have folks come out and clean it. And I know there's a long history with this property, but there are also a lot of rats. So just, adding that, rats are an issue there. There was a dumpster because of construction, but the dumpster is gone. So now it's just this big trashy vacant side piece of land. So wanted to sort of flag that to see if there's anything you can do to work on this intersection or this 501 Kennedy, which is again the northwest corner. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And so I know you mentioned putting in a 311 request. We can follow up offline. If you can find that request for me, I could also, and even if you can't, I can raise the issue.
It's like weekly. So yes, I'll send you a 311 request.
And what I can do is have DOB come out and follow up, because also, like you said, they're just coming out to do fixes. What we might need to do is also put it before the mayor's initiative to take back blighted properties and redevelop them for the community good. So hearing this, it hadn't been on my radar, but I will definitely put it on there now, and I will follow up with you offline to get what you have in terms of 311 requests, and I will take it back to both my director and my core team so that we can prioritize this space, especially from what I'm seeing in the chat in terms of the fact that children are there in that area.
It's across this. Thank you so much. It's across the street from the Kennedy. And I know Brian's on tonight to talk about that building. But yeah, there's a lot of kids living across the street. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Questions for Mr. Johnson from the general public? Hearing none, Mr. Johnson, I'm sure would you mind if people contacted you offline if they did have follow-up questions?
Excuse me, I do have a question.
Yes.
Sorry about that. I couldn't get to
I hear a voice. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm calling, my question is, what's the protocol for reporting overgrown grass to 311? This process for me, I started it last year. The neighbors were cited. They were due to clean up by December 24th, 2022. Here we are getting ready to come back on December. I called several times to 311 and they reported back, oh, it's ongoing. Then they closed the ticket out only to send me a picture of a mattress that was dumped at the Triangle Park. I called once again, and now I'm starting the process all over again. I literally cannot sit on my porch at night because of the overgrown grass and the rats jumping out of it, as well as their backyard is just as bad as the front yard.
No, thank you. I hear you and I understand. I recently put in a 311 request for something similar. So what I can do is I'm gonna put my information in the chat, and if you could either send me what you have in terms of a 311 or a screenshot, you can text me at the number I'm gonna provide, whatever is most comfortable, easy for you. And you can also feel free to give me a call tomorrow if you like, and we could walk through opportunities for us to get that property reviewed for inspection. Because what I know is that DOB doesn't have the enforcement arm. What happens is they can issue fines, but sometimes, and what I've heard from some of the representatives is that the owners say that it's easier just to take the fine and continue not doing something. And so if these properties reach a certain level of infraction, then I know there's potential for other triggering events from the government. And so depending on what that looks like, if you said that it's an ongoing thing, so that may be the case. And so what I want to do is get the exact location and also any prior 311s you may have submitted, and I can look into it. I will drop my information in the chat as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Next up, we have Ms. Barbara Rogers from our representative's office. Ms. Rogers, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Commission 4D and the community. My name is Barbara Rogers. I am the Community Engagement Director for Councilmember Janice Lewis George's office. And I actually just have a couple of updates, and then I will introduce Miss Nikita Easley and Kelly Hunt. So for my two updates, I think I've mentioned here before about our care days, and the Brightwood Park Care Day will actually be on August 10th. And the commissioners will receive an email on that. And then also I want to mention and for Petworth, we will reschedule Petworth. We had to reschedule Petworth twice. The first one was for the air quality, and then the second one was due to rain. So we will reschedule Petworth. And again, Brightwood Park is actually going to be on August 10th. And for you all who don't know, Care Days is actually a community outreach day that we do in every neighborhood in Ward 4, where we bring resources to the community. There's door-to-door outreach. The council member knocks on doors in the neighborhood, and we actually take constituent service requests. And it's just a way to bring the community together. And tomorrow is National Building Museum Day for Ward 4. So we invite you to come out to that event tomorrow. I think the time is from 10 to 4 tomorrow. So you can get in free. Ward 4 residents will be able to enter the museum for free and explore the new summer installation, participate in handcrafts, enjoy story time from 11 to 1. And the council member will be there in the afternoon. But it's a great event. So if you are available, please come out tomorrow. If you cannot make it tomorrow, you can come out either August 3rd or August 17th. And you can do that through the at-large representative. So and you do need to bring an ID to prove that they'll look, I think, just at your zip code to just make sure that you actually live in Ward 4 in order to get in for free. Also, make sure you sign up for our newsletter. You can go to janiceward4.com. We send out a newsletter every Friday with good, useful information. I will actually put that information in the chat. So that is all that I have as far as an update. At this time, the council member actually sends her regards. We know that you all invited her to come and talk a little bit about public safety and Kennedy Street, but don't despair, you are in great hands. We have Nikita Easley here, who is the Deputy Committee Director, and we have Kelly Hunt, who is our Chief of Staff. They are experts in everything public safety, as well as Kennedy Street. So they are here to answer any questions. So I will at this time turn it over to Nikita Easley.
Thank you, Barbara. Kelly, did you want to start with some?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So yes, I am Kelly Hunt. I am the council member's chief of staff, and I know that I have met a few of you as you came through for swearing in this time around, but for those of you that I haven't met, it is very nice to be here this evening. Before I launch up into too much more, I wanted to double check. So is this when you guys are wanting our presentation, or do you want that later? I don't want to keep talking, have someone have to pop in and say, hang on.
I think we'd put it later in the agenda, but since you're already speaking, unless anyone has any objection, we might as well just proceed.
Okay, great, good, happy to do that. So just kind of setting the stage a little bit for what we had been asked to do and what Nikita and I can do. Barbara kind of built us up just a little bit. While we are very well versed in public safety issues in the district and clearly in the council members' goals and opinions about those things. So we have recently had a few changes in the office. So our actual expert has moved on. And so Nikita and I are pinch hitting just a little bit. What we're going to do is Nikita's going to tell you a little bit about the recent summer public safety strategy meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago on what MPD and the various agencies and what the council has been doing on public safety. I'll give you a little bit of an update on what happened on Kennedy Street recently. And then we can answer any questions that anyone has. So Nikita, if you want to talk about the summer public safety strategy meeting.
Yep, thank you, Kelly. And then once again, I'm Nikita Easley. I'm the Deputy Committee Director. As you know, Councilmember Lewis George is the Chair of the Facilities and Family Services Committee. And so I handle the family services part. So just providing a brief overview of the summer safety strategic planning meeting that was held on June 29th. It was mainly to address some of the public safety concerns and the initiatives that will be put in place over the summer. We had a number of speakers there in addition to the council members. So 4th District Commander Carlos Harrod, Cure the Streets from the Office of the Attorney General, Inner City Collaborative, DC Department of Behavioral Health. And we also invited the Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, but I don't think they were able to attend. I will put the link to the videos, about 2 hours, and then also the slides in the chat when I'm finished with this part of the presentation. But you will see in the slides that they address a number of things. One being the root causes of violence and how government agencies are working together to address public safety and what the council members' role is. Recent budget investments, for example, $9 million in hiring incentives to fill MPD vacancies, and then also $28 million for violence interrupters, hospital-based intervention, and housing relocation. The council member also spoke about many of the partnerships with other agencies and the collaborations that she initiated to address public safety concerns. The first one being with the Office of the Attorney General and bringing Cure the Streets to Ward 4 is currently the only violence interruption program in the ward and has been proven to work. She's worked with the Department of Buildings, enforced the sale of nuisance properties from Coloma River, and also worked to put fencing around numerous vacant and blighted properties. She's also worked with DPW to remove gang tagging. And another important collaboration was with Metro Transit. Last year, she conducted a walkthrough of the Petro Metro station. And after that walkthrough, Metro Transit basically, provided more resources to that Metro stop. And so we've seen a reduction of violent crime there. In addition to what the council member talked about, 4th District Commander focused on MPD's priorities, and there were 4 for dealing with maybe an uptick in violence for the summer. The first being MPD will have focused patrols, and I guess this is a citywide initiative. Each district was broken up into grids, and the grids that had the highest crime areas, they will have patrols at random times. And what he said at the meeting was that the patrol is not just, looking for someone or arresting someone is actually making connections with businesses and people in the area. The second strategy is looking at the crime suppression unit, and they will have officers rotating throughout the community. The third initiative is the community engagement officers. There are 2 officers that he sends out every day to build relationships with the community. And then finally, the violent crime reduction partnership. This is where MPD and other district agencies like DBH, DPW, Department of Buildings will walk through Georgia and Kennedy and Georgia and New Hampshire, 1 hour every other week to look at what is going on, whether it's streetlights that need to be fixed, vacant buildings. So those are just some of the initiatives that MPD will look at, in addition to what the council member has already been doing. She's taking tours with DPR, especially as being the chair of the Facilities and Family Services Committee. So there are a lot of different things, and public safety is not just about policing, it's also doing these other things. So I will turn it over to Kelly to talk about Kennedy Street.
Hi, so I was asked to give an update, and in all honesty, about the recent arrests on Kennedy Street. And in all honesty, there is not really much of an update. That they have the arrests were made, and everyone who's arrested still currently being held at the DC jail, as though that will be working through the legal process. So I thought maybe I'd give just a little bit of a summary of what happened. So we did have a group of residents between the ages of 22 and 30 who were arrested a few weeks ago and charged with a wide variety of local and federal crimes related to suspected criminal business that included a lot of drug transactions, could be as many as up to 7 murders and many other violent episodes, where many people were hurt, a lot of guns seized, and for lack of a better word, I think interesting part of this was that it was an expansive investigation involving a lot of both local and federal agencies, including the IRS. So I know that when we think about organized crime, typically, we will, picture, having watched The Sopranos or whatever. But that's essentially what this was. It was a suspected criminal enterprise, so that they were laundering, or alleged to have been laundering money through a casino at the MGM casino at National Harbor, through a car detailing business. And so there's a long list of crimes that are being alleged against this group of young men. In all honesty, the only update, only information that has come to the council member's office within the last week or so is that there were some complaints about the conditions at DC jail. And as we all know, DC jail is horrible. Needs to have been replaced many years ago, something that is, the executive is still working on. But the council member did look into that, and has reached out to the director of the Department of Corrections, was assured that, conditions are as good as they get at the DC jail. And she has made arrangements to go down there and visit to ensure that the conditions are, at least, they are working to make them better, and make sure that no one's living, in completely substandard conditions. So that's essentially the update that we have on Kennedy Street. Again, happy to talk to you about anything that any questions you have, but in all honesty, this works the way these investigations do, right? They have been going on for a long time, and the council member, like most people, were not notified until after the arrests had been made. And then someone reached out and said, we're about to announce this thing that happened today. So we know that there is a lot of concern about things that are going on in Kennedy Street. And I think this is a perfect example of those things that we don't see going on until they actually come to fruition. The only other thing in the public safety sphere that's been happening, I know a lot of you have been following what was going on with the emergency crime legislation that was passed last week before we went on recess. Hopefully you're all on get the council members newsletter. While she did work with her colleagues to improve that legislation, there was still one sticking point that she just felt was a bridge too far, in that it was stripping away a right on a temporary basis, but still stripping away a right related to adult pretrial detention. And she felt like that deserved a lot more discussion than it was getting. So that was the reason for her no vote. If you have any questions about that specifically, I think it's kind of I'm not an attorney, Nikita is, and so she can answer those questions a lot better, but it does get pretty technical and lengthy. So if you do have concerns about that vote, we're happy to do the quick answers here, but go into more depth offline if any of you would find that that helpful. So that's essentially where we are.
Thank you, Ms.
Happy to
Hunt.
answer
Appreciate it.
questions.
We'll start with questions from commissioners. Commissioner Lucarelli.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me. And sorry, there's a bad echo. Also, Ms. Hunt, thank you for your presentation. It was definitely very thorough police work, and as someone who lives on the 700 block of Kennedy, and several of the individuals, and I read through all the indictments and the motions that have been filed thus far. I mean, several of those folks, were perched up right out, in front of our building, and so I'm very intimately aware. I've seen some, really horrible and ridiculous things over the past couple of years, and so I'm glad to see all these agencies come together to do something because, I think as others have said, we were really fed up. But since then, and I just want to draw your attention because, while this group in question has, a lot of the members have been, are being held, and I think that that's the right decision. They've shown a willingness to disregard life, safety, and welfare in this neighborhood for the people that live here and just want to get by. And so I think that that is the right decision. I don't like hearing that the jail conditions are bad because, being held pretrial shouldn't be a death sentence or shouldn't put anyone's life in jeopardy. So I appreciate the councilwoman following up with those things. But there are folks that are, I think, taking advantage of the situation. There's a new group of folks hanging out at Kennedy and Illinois Street. And I had a friend over this weekend, and I believe it was, I don't believe that they've been to my neighborhood yet. And they were like, those people up there, I mean, they're blatantly dealing. And so I was like, I know. On one occasion, there was a baby out there in a stroller during a heat advisory and a air pollution event. And so it's totally unsuitable environment for an infant in a stroller. There's also a dog that is occasionally off leash. And so I don't know what's going on at that corner. I know that a demolition permit was filed a couple of weeks ago because that corner is being redeveloped there on the eastern side of Kennedy at the intersection of Georgia and Illinois. But I haven't seen a construction fence go up. I haven't seen utilities being disconnected. So who knows when that's coming, but and I believe the police have been there a couple times now. So if you could just put that on the councilwoman's radar, that would be great because it's another powder keg waiting to go. And so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Judson.
Thanks. Yes. Thank you so much, Ms. Hunt and Ms. Easley for coming this evening. I dropped a link in the chat. I don't know if you know any information about this, but this press release came out from MPD, I believe on July 7th, saying that there are these 4 individuals who are still wanted in relation to the 12 individuals, the KDY arrests. And I'm just curious if there's been any update on these 4 individuals who are wanted, if you've heard anything.
I don't believe so. We did ask about that right after that release came out, and we've not gotten an update, but I didn't specifically ask that question when I spoke to Commander Haraud, just for like general updates for this meeting. So I'll ask that specific question and then report back to you guys for sharing with the group.
Thank you, appreciate it.
The questions from the general public for the council members' representatives. Neighbor Wesley.
Hi, I'd like to follow up and echo the problem at Georgia and Illinois as well. Yesterday, our group, faith leaders and community neighbors, we walked Kennedy Street from from Plymouth Congregational Church, all faiths together. We prayed on different corners. Had a lot of people talking with us, a lot of people. But when we got down to Illinois and Georgia Avenue, from when we started, because I drove that way because I live on Illinois. And then it was, like you said, the babies were out there and clearly dealing going on. It was just, it's unbelievable. So I'd like to reiterate the fact that that needs to be handled. But again, we're going to continue walking Kennedy Street. And I'm going to be in touch with you, Ms. Hunt, to tell you some of the things that we want to do.
I would love that. Yes, please do. And I will say, we did, I know Barbara Rogers with our group was on that walk with you guys yesterday. The council member had wanted to be there and just wasn't able to adjust her schedule. But we know you're going to keep doing those. So yes, please reach out to me on other things you want to do. But I do know the council member also wants to join one of those future walks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Any other questions from anyone from the public? We have a minute or two more if we have one or two more questions. No?
Yes, this is Wanda Lofton, and I may not be familiar with the faith leaders that did that walk yesterday, but I would love to be included, if that's possible, in those activities that you are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll get your name and number.
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right.
Any other questions or comments from the public or for the council member's office? Hearing none, thank you all for coming tonight. We very much appreciate your presence and the work that you're doing to try to help make our neighborhood safer. We appreciate that. Next up, we have community comments. So this is an opportunity from anyone in the community to speak up, to raise any issues or questions that are on their mind. In the interest of time, we ask you to try to keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. But we will open up the floor to anyone from the community who would like to speak. Ms. Wesley.
Thank you. I'd like to start with thanking everyone who appreciates the work that we're doing in Lorenzo Allen Park. And but I like to encourage you to please keep the dogs on your leash and to pick up poop. I know that that Commissioner CC is working on getting so we can get bags because we run out a lot of the bags from Lorenzo Park. I also want to complain about, I live on the corner of Illinois and Gallatin, and I have a driveway and a garage that I keep my car, and I've been living around here for quite a while. But since the pandemic, with the speeding up and down the street, and the new speed bumps are very, very low, so most cars don't really have to stop to go through there. But I need something to happen so that I won't be hit again with my car coming out the garage. People say they don't see the driveway, so transportation wise, I need some signage or something. And that's my things I want to talk about for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wesley. Your individual commissioner, your SMD, I don't know if
That's me. That's me. I will work with you, Zilla, Ms. Wesley, on addressing your concerns and resubmitting the TSI and putting us in contact with our DDOT representative as well.
Thank you.
Question or comment from neighbor Lofton?
Yes. I am wanting to let the community know that there will be an event on July the 29th in the community at our location at 5209. That's Georgia Avenue. And if I may share that flyer, that someone who is a parent or that has a youth that would be interested in sharing their talent, singing or dancing from the ages of 6 until 22. And we want to share this so that those in the community will know that we support our young people and we want to let them share their talent and with the support of the community.
Thank you, Ms. Lofton. We'd be very happy to distribute that information. Unfortunately, I don't think I could pass for being between the ages of 12 and 22 anymore, but I'm sure there'll be other members of the community who can fit that bill. So we'll be happy to spread the word for you.
Yeah, my toddler is 28 months and she can really do a mean rendition of Beat It to Michael Jackson's Beat It, but I don't know if everyone would be amused by that.
Well, thank you so much. And when she is of age, we will be glad to have her. Amen.
Question or comment from neighbor Zach Israel?
Hello, good evening, 4D commissioners. So I just wanted to offer some comments on some of the items you'll be voting on later tonight and sort of bundle it all in this 1 2-minute period. So I urge all 8 commissioners to vote in support of Commissioner George's resolution urging DDOT to install 2 speed humps on the 4800 block of 7th Street Northwest. I'm sort of personally vested in this because I actually was the one who submitted that traffic safety input nearly 1 year ago. And as you all know, DDOT significantly limits now how many TSIs they actually investigate on a quarterly basis. It's only 200 per quarter in the entire city. And so this one was only 1 of 7 in ANC 4D for the first quarter of this calendar year. So it would be, it was very disappointing to see that while they originally recommended the speed humps in March, they turned around and declined to do it a few months later. So you all have that power to urge them to do it, and they have to give you guys great weight. So it would be great to see a unanimous vote on that tonight. That's the first thing I wanted to mention. I also ask you all to support Commissioner George's resolution regarding the intersection of Allison Street, 8th Street, and Kansas Avenue, right next to E.L. Haynes. It's a very dangerous intersection, and Commissioner George and other commissioners on ANC 4C have really done great work bringing in DDOT on that, and there's some really good recommendations there. So I urge you all to support that. And lastly, please support the grant funds to Petworth Blooms. Steve Feingold has done great work at Lorenzo Allen Park and all the other triangle parks in ANC 4D with beautiful flowers. That's all predominantly or entirely his work. So he is worthy and his organization is worthy of those grant funds. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Neighbor Weaver.
Hi, I'm Brian Weaver, a neighbor and the director of Petworth Main Street. I was actually going to let you guys know that this Saturday, July 22nd, over at the Petworth Recreation Center is going to be another one of the Petworth Jazz projects. A lot of the local businesses on Georgia Avenue and Upshur have some deals set aside. I have fee as fines, Cinder Barbecue. I know that Simple all are having specials. So if you want to go out and get some food and bring it down to the park and hear some jazz, it'd be a great opportunity to meet some of your neighbors. And then August 25th, towards the end of the summer, we're going to have another one of the Kennedy Street movie nights. And the first one that we did got washed out, but then we had a rain date and actually had a very successful project, probably about 60 kids from the community coming out to like at least do the foam parade, to come out to the local library on Kennedy, which is a hot topic for you guys. So we should definitely support the mobile one when it's there. And then also we watched Super Mario Brothers. So I don't know what movie's going to be up in the 25th, but I'll put it out on some community boards and let you guys know. But it's 2 really good events that you can come out and meet your neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Appreciate it. Commissioner Weigel, do you have your hand raised? Or it's someone else with your name, I think, maybe perhaps.
Yes. Someone who used my login information, likely.
Is there someone out there who logged in with Commissioner Weigel's information? Whoever you are, you have your hand raised. Do you want to speak? Okay. Well, if that changes, please just jump in and interrupt me and we'll try and take your comment. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Yes, my name's Sharon Johnson. I live in a 5100 block of Illinois Avenue. They've been doing construction on the street. However, the signs are still posted there and they're due to come up August 4th, I believe. However, no work has been done. Do we know the status? Are they finished? And if so, can they come and take the signs down so that we are able to park back in front of our houses?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I believe that would be
That's me again.
okay.
Thank you for the question, Sharon. We've been going back and forth with DDOT when it comes to that construction. And the last I was informed that those signs should be removed in the very near future, but I will follow up directly with them again after this evening, after this meeting this evening, and we'll follow up with you directly.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, we will move on to the next agenda items, which are committee updates. Before we go to committee updates, just a quick announcement to the public. When we first started as commissioners back in January, we voted to put in place certain committees. Now that we've been a few months on the job, we've had a chance to kind of look at those committees and think a little bit about what works and what doesn't work. And just want to announce that we're going to be making some changes in the fall, and those changes will include involving the public more in committees. And hopefully many of you who are here tonight will want to participate and get involved in some of those, which hopefully will have a positive impact on our community. So just letting you all know that that's something that we are working on for over the next month or so. So we'll start out with the Committee for Public Safety that has been run so far by Commissioners Judson and Weigel. Do you have any updates for us?
My biggest update is just echo what you just said. And we have so far 2 members who have signed up to join our Public Safety Committee and give us direct input. But also, you know, the real goal is to be the ones drafting resolutions, helping neighbors with direct issues, really the eyes and ears to connect people with not just the police, but with all kinds of service to help them feel safer in their community. So please join the Public Safety Committee. So let's leave it at that. I'm going to find a link and toss it in the chat real quick.
Thank you.
So everybody can have a chance to do that.
And for our committee on transportation and Vision Zero, any updates from Commissioners Lucarelli or Marentick?
Yeah, sure. Commissioner Lucarelli here. So Stephen and I on the Transportation Committee, which by the way, we're still looking for people who are interested in joining the ranks. We partnered with Commissioner George on some traffic safety issues this past week. And I believe one of them is up for a resolution vote tonight. I have a couple more intersections that I'm keen on looking at together. And so if Commissioner George wants to tag along, that'd be great. It's the same with everyone else. And then in September, I'd like to bring forth a resolution that I'm working on for DDOT to prioritize a number of outstanding TSI requests for the remainder of the year. I believe there's about 10 or 11 that have been prioritized. And so we want to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they're making good on those issues.
Excellent, thank you. Any updates on public facilities from Commissioners Judson and Pinckney? Commissioner Pinckney and Judson have been working hard on the establishment of a library in our community. We're working out some logistics about peeling that committee off to be a separate library committee. But in the meantime, Commissioners Judson and Pinckney, any updates for us?
Okay. This is Commissioner Pinckney. I am, in short, we actually have 24 attendees that were invited to our meeting tomorrow. It will be our second meeting of the whole. Commissioner Kate and myself are not chairs or co-chairs. We are listed as leaders of this team so that we can be compliant with our commission's bylaws. So there is no chairperson as of yet. And this committee, well, i.e. team, is actually working on a project that is germane and sponsored and whole by the commission itself, because the library impacts all of us, and not just 4D, but 4B, 4C, 4A. And I'm happy to report that there are leaders from different various commissions who are also on the team. So that is wonderful. Kate has a wonderful report because we have, what is it, the library mobile, Kate? Let her.
Yeah, thanks, Joy. Yeah, I'll just add that Brian Weaver from Uptown Main Street, who you just heard from, shared that DC Public Library's mobile library is interested in returning to Kennedy Street this summer for about 2 to 3 days over the course of July or August. So at our meeting tomorrow night, we're going to discuss when the best days would be to have this mobile library come and locations. But if you have any thoughts, please feel free to drop them in the chat or send Commissioner Pinckney or myself an email with the suggestions in terms of location and days of the week that you would love to see a mobile library. And obviously a mobile library is not a permanent library, but I think it's a great opportunity to bring books and librarians to Kennedy Street. So thanks so much.
Yes. And then we also, my thought is also to possibly, while the mobile is here, they're going to be here 3 different times in August as of right now. That's what we're thinking. Maybe people can also put in the applications for their library cards, because library cards are very important, and they're, gives us access to the library. And then we're also interested in hearing from some seniors who may like to be in a library or have books at their disposal, and see what kinds of mobile solutions might work for them. So hearing all of these things, and now we have coming tomorrow, the young lady who did the statistics for the actual library office, to help us to get the statistics and to query all of our communities so that we can start out knowing what our community may need or want. So if you're interested in joining the team and giving your ideas, etc., just reach out to us and we'll be happy to reach back to you.
Thank you to you both. The Committee for Environment and Public Health, Commissioners Corniotis and Weigel, any updates?
Well, as was mentioned earlier about rats, etc., we plan on really making a push, especially in August during our quote unquote recess, to expand our committee and recruit members who are interested, and collaborate with Derek and members of Councilmember Louis George's team as well in making a priority of the environmental aspects of not only the rat issue, but other aspects of our environment on the whole. So that's the plan, to really use August as a way of recruiting members to the committee.
Excellent. Thank you to you both. Next up, we have announcements from commissioners. I'll make just a very quick announcement, which is that we have no public meeting scheduled for August. It's our August recess. So the next public meeting for ANC 4D will be scheduled on September 20th. The next executive meeting is scheduled for September 6th. Our plan is to return to hybrid in September. So we're going to try this as an experiment. On September 20th, our meeting will be held both online and at Latin Charter School in ANC 4D 08. And so we'll try it and see how it goes. So hopefully we will see you there. Any other announcements from any commissioners?
One thing, Chair Parati,
Yes, please.
we did end up deciding recently so that we could discuss the shift back to hybrid meetings in December, having an executive meeting in August, the first Wednesday of August. So
Oh,
I
that's
know
right.
the-
Thank you.
the
I forgot
agenda
all
had
about
wrong.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will be meeting on the first Wednesday of August, which is August 2nd. Again, executive meetings are open to the public. We don't make any decisions there. It's really a chance primarily for us to determine what's on the agenda, but the public is invited to attend if they desire. Announcement from Commissioner Cornelius.
Just a very quick announcement. Tomorrow evening, starting at 7 in Lorenzo Allen Park, the Department of Parks and Recreation is hosting a movie. It's going to be Space Jam, The New Legacy, and it's starting promptly at 7. Popcorn will be provided, and I will figure out beverages as well. But they will definitely be providing popcorn, and I hope that the weather cooperates and that I see many of you there.
Thank you. Commissioner George.
Yeah, I have two announcements. I'll drop the links to both of these in the chat as well. One, we had DDOT come last month to speak to our commission about the expansion of the bus lane project on Georgia Avenue to go all the way from Berry Place to Eastern Avenue in Maryland. I know DDOT is still taking feedback and thoughts and questions from the public as they develop those plans, and are excited to hear from you all as they try and prepare concepts for what that bus lane redesign will look like. So I encourage anybody with feelings about how to improve Georgia Avenue in terms of transit efficiency and pedestrian safety to reach out to DDOT and make yourself heard. And the other thing is I recently started a newsletter for my single member district. I will paste that in the chat if there are folks who are interested in periodically hearing from me on the issues that I'm working on or the issues affecting our District 4D06, please feel free to sign up. I would love to be able to have that be a way to share updates with you all.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Any other announcements from commissioners?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just wanted to make a couple announcements about 4003.
Please.
Yeah, sure. So if folks have noticed, the construction fence has gone up around Truesdale Elementary School. So that's a great sign. I've sat on the SIT subcommittee, which I don't remember what it stands for, but we have done a lot of great work, and obviously it's exciting to see that project move forward, but obviously just drive safe around there. There's another construction update. I think I kind of mentioned it earlier, and that's just that the set of 4 buildings, 4 tiny storefronts on Georgia and Kennedy that start with, I think it's called the Best Stop, and also include the H&R Block, and then 2 other storefronts. A demolition permit was filed for that, and so that brings us one step closer to construction of a new multifamily building with ground floor retail engaging Georgia. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's all I got. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other announcements from commissioners? All right, we will move on. Next item on the agenda. This is an old matter from last month. I don't know if we have any updates. Commissioner Pinckney, this refers to the gas station at Georgia and Missouri Avenue.
Yes, I have not heard again from them with their intent. However, I have ridden by there and I did notice that the gas station is open and operating. So maybe they are going through with operating it until they actually get their act together, so to speak, for when and how they want to present or request their action. Maybe they've, adjusted it. So I just urge you to go on by and get your gas if you need it, or go on by and talk to someone over there if you're still interested in what they plan to do for the for that corner. And when I hear from them, I'll be happy to share that with everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinckney. Next up, we have a couple of new items. First up is an ABRA application from Neptune Room. Commissioner Lucarelli.
Yeah, sure. Let me pull up some documents. So if folks have noticed in 4D and beyond that, in 4003 and beyond, that there's a placard on the Neptune Room. Your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. They have filed a request with the new agency, now known as the Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Administration Committee, administration, to make some adjustments to their hours. This isn't a renewal. And so, they currently have, trying to find this darn document. They currently have, an approval in place. They're looking to change the hours according to one of the owners for some so that they can host some. For instance, the World Cup, the Women's World Cup is starting in a couple of weeks, and one of the owners intimated that it would be useful to upgrade their hours, which they would like to move up to 24 hours to allow them to play some of these early games that begin in the morning. I don't know if I don't know if there's a representative or agent here from the Neptune Room, but I think it would be prudent for you to raise your hand or to speak so that we could hear a little bit more about this from you, because we know internally there is some concern about a 24-hour operation. So with that, I hand over the mic. It looks like someone is ready to speak.
Yeah, hi, this is Paul Vivari. I'm one of the owners of Neptune Room. And yeah, to your point, we're really just trying to do this to have a little bit of flexibility to show some of these soccer games that start pretty early in the morning. We're not planning on changing our regular hours at all. We're still planning on opening up at 5 p.m. and keeping our normal closing hours. But DC area does have a pretty big soccer fan contingency, and it's just we think it'd be a fun thing to offer, and a lot of our patrons have asked about it. And when we've showed, like, we're showing the women's US game tomorrow night, or Friday night, from 9 to 11. We expect to have a pretty good crowd for that. So yeah, just to give us a little bit more flexibility for this down the road. But I'm happy to answer any additional questions anybody might have.
Mr. Vivari, is this, just so we understand, are you asking for this as a temporary measure, or is this a permanent change so that you could be flexible, say, a year from now or 2 years ago for now?
Yes, it would be a permanent change to our posted liquor license to allow us, that exact flexibility you're talking about.
Kevin McCarthy.
Questions from commissioners to start?
That group. It doesn't surprise you, though. I mean,
This is Commissioner Pinckney.
Commissioner Pinckney.
Somebody's radio is okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any letter or memo of understanding between us and the Neptune people?
If you're asking if there's a settlement agreement drafted,
Yeah.
not at this time. If we can all come together in agreement on what those terms and conditions would be, I don't think it would be very difficult to draft something up, and then if the chair is so kind, we could, move on to the next item. We could do something like that, and then maybe take it at the end if that's permissible. I'll also defer to Commissioner George, who's our secretary, but we would first have to get to an agreement on things, and so.
Okay, well, okay, I understand that. So the answer is no.
Mhm.
So, in terms of, well, we cannot legally or otherwise come to an agreement tonight because there's certain things that must be in place in that agreement from the standpoint of the agency that's going to grant it. And there is a strict list of items that must be included in that document before they would even consider it. Okay, and it would not behoove us to pass anything without having these things in hand. Also, I am not inclined, this is just me, it's a democracy, but I'm not inclined to approve it as it's presented because I'm not convinced that the presentation about keeping that business open or giving them an option to have a 24/7 opportunity to serve drinks whenever some event might show itself is something that the community wants. So have they
Commissioner, if I may, they're not asking for 24-hour liquor license. Please read the notice that I've shared on the screen. That's not what they're asking for. And I mean, I'd obviously go to the applicant, but I'm looking at the placard.
I can't move the document up and down to read it.
Okay, well, I have it.
And it is not acceptable that you all present something to me tonight and say that you want me to vote on it tonight. That is not what we said as a commission that we would do. It has been 3 weeks that I could have had this. And I cannot, as a representative of my 2,000 constituents, say yes to something that you all are just going to show me right now. I'm not saying no forever, but this is not how we do business. This is not what we agreed upon.
Joy, that's not what I was insinuating. I was just saying that if we came to an agreement on that, I did not say that I have something that I'm going to ask you to shoot from the hip and decide on. So please don't mischaracterize my statements.
You said.
If I could just interrupt just for a moment. So just let me, just so I can explain to Mr. Vivari and the public sort of what we're talking about here. So Mr. Vivari, the trouble is that we as a commission have to make a decision tonight about how we're going to proceed. And we basically have two options. The first option is to protest with the ABC board temporarily to say, we don't approve now of this proposal for 24 hours. That doesn't mean that we're opposed to it, as Commissioner Pinckney said, but I think the commission would probably be more comfortable if we could codify in a settlement agreement that this is only a temporary operation, but you're not planning to stay open 24 hours, 7 days a week in perpetuity. So for example, we have a couple of businesses nearby and they have permission to operate during extended hours, but they've codified in a settlement agreement when they're planning to do that. So 10 times a year, 5 times a year, 6 times a year, whatever it is. And so I think we as a commission, and I don't want to speak for my fellow commissioners, but based on our previous discussions, I think we probably would be more comfortable with something that codifies a little bit for the community what the plan is going forward, rather than to just sort of sign a blank check to say, we're okay with 24 hours. Commissioner George?
One clarifying question. Is it also the case that once we sign that settlement agreement, it could be amended in the future if, for example, there is some unforeseen event that would require 24-hour operation, we could reconvene and approve another temporary extension of those hours if there's a settlement agreement in place?
That's correct. A settlement agreement can be updated anytime. So that's certainly can happen. Commissioner Lucarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with everything you've said. And for instance, I mean, one of the things that we could write into the language would be, for instance, if Mr. Vivari, doesn't know, for instance, how many there are, and I'm not trying to lead the witness here per se, but we could do something where maybe we could bake in some sort of, and we don't have to decide on this here, but maybe there's some sort of administrative process whereby Mr. Vivari, if he knows ahead of time, they let us know when the days that they might need to be open, and we could like discuss it at our meetings, and if there's protest to that, then things like that. There's a number of different ways that we could look at this and still make sure that the community's interests are maintained, because I agree, it doesn't make sense for 24 hours all the time. but we definitely want to give a business and private property owner flexibility to, you know, as long as they're giving us proper notice or letting us know ahead of time so that we can let folks know, so that if they need to plan, they can do that. But
Commissioner Cornelius. Cece, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. I have a question in terms of this ABRA application. Is your hearing to present within the ABC board upcoming, Mr. Vivari?
Yes, it is. So if we do receive a protest, I believe it says on the form, the roll call hearing date is August 21st.
Okay, just clarifying the dates, etc., for everyone on this call as well. As my fellow commissioners have stated, it's not that we're necessarily against what you're proposing. It's just that we want to take into account the community at large and what their interests are as well.
Commissioner Pinckney.
Yes, Mr. Vivari, I am in support of your business and you doing your business as you see fit. And I am in support of you all being available for your visitors and to have a good time. I'm the last person to stop anybody from having a good time. Okay, but before us right now is an application that says 24-hour access. Okay, so all we need to do is have a memo, a settlement agreement. Now, if you're trying to go to the board in August, that means we can discuss and you can talk about what you are willing to settle with, i.e., if you know the soccer schedule, like we all know what football season is, we all know what basketball season is. So you know the seasons of the sports that you might want to have extended hours for. So if you list those in the settlement agreement from date to date, etc., then you can work that out. All I'm saying is if you and the commissioner from that SMD could pen a settlement agreement that we're all able to work around, and if it includes everything that's required by the ABC whatever board, then you could meet your goal. But as of tonight, we don't have that. So I'm just not comfortable with approving it, and I'm more comfortable with filing what is it called, Mr. Chair?
A protest.
A protest. So if we do a protest, does that mean, Mr. Chair, that he could possibly go before the ABCBA board in August, or would that have to wait till September?
So that's a very good question. I believe the way that it works, Commissioner Pinckney, is that we would file the protest at the end of July. And I believe that protest would be taken into account when Mr. Vivari goes before the ABC board in August. Just so you know, Mr. Vivari, the ANC can withdraw a protest. So, we can file a protest and then we can change our minds later. Just so we know, Mr. Vivari, would you be open to the possibility of working through a negotiated settlement with Commissioner Lucarelli? Is that something that you're open to?
I mean, absolutely. I'd certainly be open to drafting something that addresses. I completely understand everyone's concerns that somehow we turn into a 24-hour nightclub or something. But I think there's a way we can figure out in advance which days we'd like to open up early. Obviously there'd have to be some wording in there about how much advance notice you would need. I know the board only meets every so often, but I think ultimately I feel very confident something can be worked out where the understanding that this is a occasional temporary thing just for these certain matches is written in so that everybody, feels more comfortable with having these hours written into our liquor license permanently.
I think that's something that we all would be very open to and to kind of working through that with you. Commissioner George?
Just a question for the approval of any settlement agreement. Our commission would need to meet and take another formal vote, correct?
That's correct.
And so if that's going to happen before the roll call hearing, we might need to call a special meeting or make our next executive meeting in part a noticed special meeting to address that vote.
That's correct. So, Mr. Vivari, this would be my suggestion. We have to vote on something tonight because we have to file something before July 30th. Right. My suggestion is that we move to vote and file a protest, but that you negotiate a settlement with Commissioner Lucarelli. And once the two of you have worked something out, then we as a commission can meet again and can review it and then vote on it separately. And hopefully we can do that sooner rather than later so that we can move this along.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I completely understand.
And it's my understanding that if we do come to an agreement, when we submit that, and if it is on or before the hearing in August, the settlement agreement would override our protest.
Correct. Commissioner George, did you have another comment or is that from before?
Sorry, from before.
Okay.
Hello, if I may.
Yes.
Hello, Cameron Mixon, counsel to the applicant, Veritas Law Firm. 100% on board with this plan. We can work with you directly. Mr. Lucarelli, if you have a email address, you could provide in the chat. I'll reach out to you about finding times to discuss and pass along some draft language for the settlement.
Yeah, sounds good. I sent Mr. Vivari my telephone number, but I'll send everyone my email, and so yeah, we can get the ball rolling and maybe liaise this weekend to work out the language, wordsmithing.
And we can pass along too. We have a fairly standard template that we've used with other businesses in the past. And basically it covers things like the business promises to maintain a safe environment, the business promises to clean up trash, the business promises to keep in contact with the ANC if there are any major changes. So pretty standard language, and then sort of codifies what their intended hours are and what their plans are. And so we can certainly forward you a copy of that template as well to sort of give you a starting point to work from.
Thank you. It'd be very helpful to start off with there, and we look forward to I think resolving this fairly amicably.
Great. Commissioner Pinckney?
Yeah, I have one more question. So in this document, do they also have to share the dates of when they actually notified the community about the possible extended hours?
So I think that's something that we can negotiate. So we had we signed a settlement agreement a couple of months ago with a business in my SMD. And in that agreement, we wrote into the agreement that they had certain exceptions when they could stay open particularly late. And we just specified a number. We didn't say which dates or that they had to notify us beforehand. So we said things like 12 times a year, which includes holidays or special events. So I think that we have some flexibility to negotiate what we want that to say.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lucarelli?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to address something that the applicant, Mr. Vivari, pasted in the chat. We may need to do some digging, but it does appear based on just a quick Google search that the mayor has the DC bars can stay open 24 hours during the World Cup this year by way of an executive order. So, we may have to look at that. I still think it would be for all parties to come to this settled agreement because, the World Cup is a very finite moment in time, whereas, we hope that Neptune Room and other businesses in 4D, are here for much longer. So I think it would still be for us to do that settlement agreement, obviously. But yeah, I mean, according to the Washingtonian dated June 21st, 2023, by way of an executive order, DC bars can stay open 24 hours a day during the World Cup.
So we'll leave it up then to Mr. Vivari and Mr. Mixon on whether that satisfies what they're trying to do or whether they still want to amend the hours. So we'll leave that up to you two to decide how you want to move forward.
Sure thing.
Right. So what I will do then is, because we have to make a decision tonight, I will move that we file a protest against the current application. Is there a second?
Lucarelli.
Seconded. So I will call a roll vote. So we'll start with Commissioner Pinckney. We're voting in favor or for or
Yes.
against the protest. Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Judson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lucarelli.
Aye.
Commissioner Corniotis,
Aye.
Commissioner Morensik,
Yes.
Commissioner George,
Yes.
Commissioner Weigel,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So the motion carries. Thank you both and for coming, Mr. Mixon, Mr. Vivari, and hopefully we can work out something soon with you both. So appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Next up, we have another ABRA application or ABCRA application for Kiddis Lounge. I think this is also you, Commissioner Lucarelli.
Yeah, it is. Thanks. How lucky. Yeah, so Kitty Lounge, which is the restaurant just a block up on Georgia in Kennedy, north of the intersection. Let me find their little letter. They have submitted a request also to amend their hours. There have been some issues at this location in the past, particularly regarding violations, I believe related to hours and whatnot. I had emailed someone, I'd emailed the contact on the notice that I'm about to share with you. I don't believe I heard back from them. I don't know if someone here representing Kitty's on the call, but now would be a great time to speak up and just tell us a little bit more about your application, because I did have trouble getting a hold of you. Thanks.
Is anyone here from Kitty's Lounge? I don't hear anyone here. I would suggest, Commissioner Lucarelli, that we do the same thing as we did with Neptune Room, which was to file a protest and try to work out a settlement agreement, especially given the concerns that you have about the business. In that settlement agreement, I know part of what they want to do is have live entertainment. We can negotiate as part of that settlement agreement reasonable steps to ensure noise abatement for neighbors. And so other things like that, we can also work into the agreement. So I would suggest that we file the protest for them as well and try to negotiate an amicable settlement with the business.
Yeah,
But
no,
I don't know if you have other thoughts.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thanks for mentioning that. I'm on page 4 of notes, and on page 1 was the breakdown of the proposed requests. And you are correct; they're asking for live entertainment until 2 a.m. Kennedy and Georgia, or Georgia and Kennedy and Illinois, that little trifecta of streets right there. We talked earlier about how there's issues going on there currently, and I want Georgia to remain an outdoor entertainment corridor. But if neighbors think that 2 a.m. is too late or not enough, I mean, now would be the time to talk about it. I personally am a little concerned about 2 a.m. During the week. And so it would be nice to hear, from the applicant, which doesn't look like they're here to speak more about what they're going to do to mitigate any impacts. Because I know that in the past, some have intimated that might be too late for this area.
Commissioner George?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the 3 changes that they were seeking they're not changing their hours of operation or alcohol, but they are seeking live music. They're seeking to increase their occupancy load by about double because of expanding into the basement of their space. Perhaps that's where they'll have live music, I don't know. And then they're changing from a Class C restaurant to a Class C tavern.
So I will move that we file a protest for this application, and hopefully Commissioner Lucarelli can negotiate an amicable settlement with them as well. Commissioner Pinckney. You're muted, Commissioner.
Sorry, those are major changes that fall really outside of a settlement, and more so of them just expanding and explaining exactly certain things or explaining some things, because if they're not Well, anyway, we can talk about that later. Go ahead, sir.
No, in any case, I think the outcome would be the same, which would be that we would file a protest pending some other new information. So I move that we do that. Is there anyone who seconds?
Lucarelli.
Second, Joy Pinckney.
All right, so I will do a roll call vote then. All those in favor of filing a protest, say aye. We'll start with Commissioner Pinckney,
Aye.
Commissioner Judson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Cornelius,
Aye.
Commissioner Morensic,
Aye.
Commissioner George,
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well, so the motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Lucarelli, for taking both of those on. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is actually a Kennedy Street update, but we already did that in the earlier part of the meeting, so we can move on to the next item, which is a
We did
grant
it.
application from Petworth Blooms. Commissioner Cornelius.
Did we
Good
do the Kennedy
evening
update?
again. Aman, Commissioner George, do you have something to say?
Did we do the Kennedy update earlier? Am I forgetting it?
That was the update as under Ms. Rogers. She had the two representatives from the council member's office. They were giving the update on Kennedy Street.
I think
Unless-
I think this is different. This is the thing that Kate was suggesting adding to the agenda.
Yeah, sorry, this is Brian Hammer from.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Not to be confused
apologize.
with Kennedy Street, the Kennedy, super confusing. The short-term family housing at Fifth and Kennedy. Wanted to provide an update to the community.
Got it. My apologies. I thought it was a public safety update. So, and so I'm sorry, this is Mr. Hammer who's speaking with us. Is that right?
Brian Hamer, good evening, everybody.
All right, thank you for joining us, sir.
No problem. Just want to keep this pretty short for everybody. Our shelter has been pretty busy over the last 6 months. We've been able to move out 50 families. For everybody who knows about, sorry, I'm outside right now. There's a lot of noise. All right, sorry. So for everybody who has any idea about the short-term family housing programs, the goal of those programs to have all of our families move out of shelter within 90 days into their own housing. Over the last 6 months, we were able to move out 50 families on an average of 66 days. We currently have 22 families in shelter who have been there for 50 days right now. So we're well above our goal of 90 days. We're well below our goal of 90 days for families in shelter. We have been able to work with our families to help them not only with housing, but with mental health resources, some with job resources, connecting other ones with school needs and daycare. So we're working not just with housing, like I said, but a more well-rounded case management. Our families, well, we are starting to see an uptick in more families being placed in shelter. Since the pandemic, our numbers have dropped substantially. But over the last few months, we're starting to get more clients. At one point, we had about 12 families in shelter. Now we're up to the mid to the upper 20s. We have a building that could hold up to 45 families, so we're not concerned about that. But we are starting to see more families in shelter. As it was mentioned earlier by Ms. Judson, the lot across the street from our building on 501 Kennedy Street, we were, before they started doing construction, cleaning that lot out just for neighborhood cleanup purposes once a week. Since we have not started, since they're still over there working, and they left quite a mess behind them. But we are, going to get back to cleaning out that area and the areas around our building. I will post my information in the chat for anybody who needs to get in contact with me regarding any of our families. If there's, any type of issues or disturbances, or anybody wants to, be a lending hand to help our families, please feel free to reach out to me. We have an Amazon list that I will also put in the chat for anybody who wants to make any type of donations to our families. Some of our other short-term family housing sites in the city get supported through their community with donations for helping for families as they exit the building, household items, towels, sheets, dishware, cooking utensils, so anything of that nature that anybody wants, we're more than welcome to accept those types of items. If hopefully luckily we haven't had any real complaints about our families in quite a while now. But if there are any issues, again, please feel free to reach out to me after I leave my information. I know Ms. Justin has my information as well, and so Commissioner Justin, sorry about that. So she could definitely get in contact with me if need be. So if any questions, so more than welcome to answer them.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for all the good work you're doing. Questions from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Pinckney, is that a raised hand from before, or is that for this
That
time?
might be from before, sorry.
No, that's okay. Commissioner Judson.
Yeah, I dropped something in the chat, but I did want to just say that I want to thank you, Brian. You've been super responsive even before becoming a commissioner. You've always just been great, a great neighbor, and just wanted folks to know if there are issues, Brian and his team are very quick to address them. So just wanted to give you a shout out for being an amazing neighbor in this neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments from the community? Thank you again, sir, for coming, and thank you again for all the work that you're doing for our community. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. You'll have a great night.
You too. Next up, we have a grant application from Petworth Blooms. Treasurer Corniotis, floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As was mentioned before by neighbor Wesley and others, Petworth Blooms is a nonprofit organization that is led by Mr. Stephen Feingold, who's here this evening to present. Hello, Stephen. On Petworth Blooms and the great work that they do throughout not only 4D, but also throughout Ward 4, 4C, 4B, etc. Specifically in our 4D community, Petworth Blooms has planted in 5 locations and is also open to expanding from those 5 locations. So I welcome Mr. Feingold this evening to present on Petworth Blooms and his grant application.
Hi, do you want to show the presentation that I shared, or can I do it?
You're muted.
Yes, no, thank you, sorry. I believe Commissioner Lucarelli can allow you to share.
It should be allowed. It's allowing multiple users.
Okay, just 1 minute.
Yeah, it's working. Thank you, Stephen.
Everyone, okay. Yeah, so as Commissioner was saying, Petworth Blooms is a nonprofit. We're dedicated to beautifying public spaces throughout the neighborhood, throughout Petworth and surrounding neighborhoods. We're applying for a grant from 4D. We have previously received grants from both 4D and 4C for this kind of work. We have a website, petworthblooms.org. Please check it out if you're interested in more information. And our current project sites within ANC 4D are as shown here. The main focus is Lorenzo Allen Park. That's the largest park and most heavily used. And then we have some smaller ones at 5th and Emerson, 8th and Farragut, First and Ingraham, and 3rd and Ingraham and 4th and Gallatin have not done a whole lot, but we have planted bulbs there in the past, which continue to bloom every spring, and would love to further expand those gardens. Our main limitation is finding local volunteers who can really kind of dig in and kind of take ownership of an individual park. And so part of the grant that we're requesting is basically to drive volunteer events, which will hopefully allow us to better connect with neighbors and kind of build those connections that we need to really really make our neighborhood as beautiful as possible. And you know, last year when we got this grant, 4D was a smaller commission. It is now covers a larger area with 2 new commissioners. And so there are definitely potential future sites that we can expand to throughout the area. And yeah, the goal for the grant is basically to do twice monthly volunteer events. See on the right, former commissioner Zach Israel helped plant bulbs last October. And those were all blooming very nicely in the spring at 8th and Farragut. And we just want to engage neighbors both with other people, with their neighbors, and with the actual physical space of the neighborhood. And here's just some pictures of the flowers that were purchased with the grant last year at Lorenzo Allen Park. We had tulips and black-eyed Susans, which are blooming right now. At 5th and Emerson, we have some yarrows and brown-eyed Susans, which were purchased with grant funding last year. And we try to focus mainly on perennials, which will come back year after year. So the money kind of has a very lasting effect. These are flowers that are from the grant we got from 4D back in 2021 at Lorenzo Allen Park, which were blooming again this spring and looking very nice. And yeah, that's my presentation. If commissioners have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Feingold. Appreciate it. Question from Commissioner Pinckney.
Hi, it's nice to see you again, sir, and hear you. As we talked about in our evaluation, you know, I'm so happy and proud to see your work. But one thing that just jumped out at me is Lorenzo Allen Park. Is that a park that is under the jurisdiction of Parks and Rec?
It is. All of these sites are under DPR.
Okay, so DPR also has money for the beautifications of those parks, do they not?
So DPR, when they did the renovations for the park, they, you know, put in some plants. They don't necessarily always survive. The 2 triangles along Gallatin were planted by DPR, and most of the plants there died or have been taken over by weeds. What we would hope to do with the money this year is kind of fix those up. I know the previous commissioner for 4D got $100,000 in the council budget to fix up the park at what's that, at 9th and Ingraham, which is, you know, that's still pending. So we probably wouldn't do any work there until that work has been accomplished.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, and I'm only talking because that just dawned on me. So monies have already been allocated for the beautification of this park along with all the other parks because they've got a budget. And my concern is this, that, you know, in my conversation with you on the committee, you said that your primary spaces that you've chosen are on the south side of 4D. And now I understand that you're beautifying parks, not spaces that are not parks. And I think that's where I've been kind of not understanding. But there are locations like such as I'm in 4D01, and there is a big spread of green grass. There's a space right there in front of a row of houses between that street and Missouri. That's just grass that could have some beautification and have something as beautiful as this picture up here on the screen. And there's no real budget for anybody coming to put any flowers there. But also, I'd like to see, you know, even though it's a little late for this year, but if you would roll into moving north with some of your sites and not just to service parks that already have attention to detail, because if we give you this money, it's to help and beautify spaces throughout 4D, not just near where you live or south of 4D, you understand? And so,
To clarify, some of the smaller parks are DDOT land. For instance, 8th and Farragut, 5th and Emerson are too small for DPR to take on. They don't view them as having recreational potential, and so they leave them to DDOT.
okay,
So they're not all parks. The large spaces you're referring to along Missouri Avenue are DPR sites. They're large enough that they're under DPR. If there were neighbors who live nearby who are interested in doing things with they're certainly welcome to contact DPR, contact me, work to add flowers or other, beautification efforts to those parks. But in general, DPR does not have a specific budget for adding flowers. They only have kind of a maintenance budget. They go through, they weed whack, they mow the grass, but they're not planting flowers. They're not maintaining any existing space.
okay. Well, like we just discovered before, and we kind of agreed, is that for the future times, we would start collectively looking together at additional spaces or different spaces, because you have bought blooming flowers that come up every year. So you don't have to redo the bulbs in those places. But also, I just think all of us want beautification all over. Okay. My other issue is, now that the treasurer has shared with all of us that our treasury still has not received the monies that we're supposed to have, to keep replenishing money from our existing monies, is also a concern for me, because we have, so I'm just looking at that too, but I
Thank
will
you.
relinquish to anyone else.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinckney. Commissioner Cornelius?
I just wanted to quickly thank Stephen for all, not only Stephen, but Petworth Blooms for all they do, not only to support Lorenzo Allen Park, but the other locations as well. And that it is really a community building effort also, that there's volunteers that are very committed. And that's, I've been one of those volunteers, and hope to and plan to be one again. So I just wanted to thank him for his presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Weigel?
I heard Mr. Stephen discuss neighbors who surround those triangle parks stepping up and taking more ownership of them. And I've recently reached out to DPW about formally adopting a triangle park that's Kansas, Gallatin, and 4th. It's very close to where I live, and I often take out full trash bags of waste from there. I was able to get the giant holly bush trimmed so that the informal recycling bin and public restroom was taken away. But now there's currently a 10 to 12 pile of trash bags full of old fireworks and barbecue remnants that have been sitting there since July 4th. And every time I make it through an owner request, it's kicked back and saying, Street and Alley Cleaning Division is going to pick it up, such and such. Like, I am this close to going vigilante and just put it in the middle of Kansas Avenue because it will get picked up immediately. It's one of those things, like, I realize it's a DDOT park, but I would love to be like a formal contact for, adopt a park, or if questions needed, if trash service needed, such like that, to connect people with service before they, have a big party, leave a bunch of trash behind, et cetera.
Yes. So 4th and Gallatin is a larger space. It's a DPR space. And Petworth Blooms actually has the park partnership agreement with DPR for that,
okay.
as part of the bulb planting that I did in 2021.
Right.
So if you're interested in that, please let's connect offline. And I don't have a great answer to getting trash picked up. 311 was, it doesn't work for parks because it's not a mailing address, and they just don't know what to do.
Right.
So I don't have a good answer for that. Hopefully we could maybe connect with the commissioner and figure out how that could best be done.
I'm awaiting a response from Ms. Leah Rogers within the Street and Alley Cleaning Division of DPW. And I have a few contact numbers too that we can talk about offline.
Great.
Commissioner Marincek.
Hello, yes, I just want to echo what everyone is saying. Those of us who've been in the neighborhood long enough can remember what these patches of land look like prior to these beautification projects. So I appreciate them whenever we see them. We have pet names for them in our family, so we love to walk by them. And looking at the potential future sites within 4D, I think that definitely helps to alleviate some of the questions that I've heard about sites in the future. So I just want to say again, I appreciate it, and I'm excited to see what happens in the future.
And Commissioner Cornelius, could you clarify for us exactly how much is on the table for Mr. Feingold and Petworth Blooms?
$3,500.
Excellent. Okay. Any other comments from from commissioners before we vote?
Yeah, I just got one more question. Well, in reading the guidelines for the money allotments, we're supposed to be giving away monies between $500 and $2,000. So why again are we over the maximum giveaway by, what is it, $1,500?
Commissioner Cornelius, are you able to clarify that for us?
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't believe I am. The 500 to 2,000 allotment or ceiling is something that we as a commission haven't actually executed on. It's something that we're we're considering when we meet in August, implementing that $2,000 ceiling.
Okay, yeah, but I'm saying even the previous commission, they had this in written in the guidelines. And I was thinking maybe there was a reason, but we have recently been approached about our rules and regulations for committees and other things. So I think we also need to really be diligent about this. So I just want to know why he needed the exception for getting $1,500 more than the $2,000.
I'll say the previous commission had a maximum of 3,500, which is what I submitted last year and was received. Other commissions have a $2,000 limit, but 4D at the time had a $3,500 limit, which is what I asked for and received last year. I submitted a more or less follow-up grant this year for the same amount.
And also,
so I'm sorry, because the application, if you applied for the application this year, right, sir? And the application here has been there, and when you applied, it says 500 to 2,000. So if you read it, you already knew that it was $2,000. Is that correct?
This grant the application was made in March when no new updates had been made at the time.
Yeah, it was, because we as a commission are brand new. So all of those documents came from what was there for us from last year.
Commissioner George, you posted a link about, but it's not working for me. Are you able to clarify for us?
These are the community grant guidelines that are found on our website. So I think these are the guidelines that were previously in place and continue to be in place.
Yeah,
and it does say that the funding available, the grants range from $100 to $2,000 with a $3,500 maximum in grant funding for a single fiscal year. But I would guess that means across multiple grants.
So may I specify?
Hold on. I'm against this. I don't think we should do this.
Say it again. Hello?
Could I have order for a second? So one person at a time, please.
I sent it to everyone.
So Commissioner Cornelius, and then we can.
Yeah, did you get a text from me?
We can hear from neighbors.
Everybody. In other words, there's a group.
Commissioner Cornelius?
Yes, just to specify, those those are just guidelines. We as a commission can vote to approve whatever amount we want to approve. There's no statute on the books in the DC code restricting how much 4D can give to an individual grantee. So as long as we vote to approve the 3,500, it's fine. Our predecessors actually gave additional grants in the same amount to other organizations before we were elected and sworn in.
Yeah, but
Thank you,
they
that's helpful.
Specify.
they had their money. They had so much money that they had to get rid of. We're not in that position.
So just to clarify, Commissioner Cornelius, we haven't spent any money though. So what is the balance in our account so far? Can you just remind us briefly?
Just under $9,000 because we have yet to receive any quarterly allotment.
Commissioner Pinckney, are you amending the motion so that we pass a $2,000 grant instead of 3,500?
I'm just, my concern is we can't spend what we don't have. Okay, now have
Yeah.
all of our bills been paid? Have all of the reimbursements been delivered? Have you gotten all of your reimbursements? Has everybody been paid out from this almost $9,000? It does not make sense for us to agree on laying out anything that is not actually in the bank, period. Now, the guidelines that exist, if we have been receiving constituent concerns and calls upon what we're supposed to be doing, then it applies to this as well. Now, right now, the last couple of meetings, we said that we weren't giving out anything because we were going over the guidelines. I am the one who said to Ms. Cece, well, since the other commissioners keep bugging us about the Bloom's application, let's go ahead and look at it. And he does do good work, and let's see. So we reviewed it and we saw it. But now that we have been stalled on a couple of things based on the technicality of what we're supposed to be doing, we need to apply it across the board. So the application process says that we only give out $100 to $2,000. Now, going up to 3,500 is based on the importance and the necessity of the application. The Bloom's application does not, to me, belong or qualify for a necessity because it doesn't directly impact somebody's life, livelihood, housing, etc.
Amen.
And we are halfway through. So I don't know if he, either we make the exception or not. I'm just asking because we have to be fiscally responsible and we cannot continue to just glaze over not having our money deposited correctly. And we can't give away what we don't have.
So I think good points, Commissioner Pinckney. So the motion before us is to vote yes or no for $3,500. If a commissioner wants to propose a different amount, and we can vote on that, then someone needs to propose a different amount besides $3,500. Does any commissioner want to propose an alternative? Commissioner Morensic?
Yes, actually, I just want to make 2 points. As far as I'm aware, there have been no other requests for grants as of this point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And second, it's sort of lost my train of thought. Sorry, it'll come to me in a second.
We don't give it all to one person.
So we've, and the second thing is we are waiting for our allotments from the last 2 quarters of $5,000 each, so totaling $10,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we're already expecting that money. It's not like it's not, if this were to be approved, obviously, it's not like we would be spending something that would give us a negative balance in the bank, since we're already expecting those funds, which are ours to spend on grants who have applied for grants. And this is the only grant that we've had so far, correct?
Well, yeah, but this is coming out of our entire budget, the budget for everything we do. Okay, no, and I'm not talking budget. This is the money that's in the bank that we have. Okay, our budgeted for money we should have. Okay, so now if a commissioner comes up and says, I want to do a mailing for such and such, or I need to reach out to my constituents, and let's say we don't have the money in the bank, do we tell our commissioner, well, no, you can't do your job, or you know, whatever? And I'm just saying we have to be responsible. So I'm not opposed to saying we'll grant this to you, but let's give him the $2,000 and him to come back or something, or I don't know. I just say that what is the exception for going $1,500 more than what we should grant? So what about this grant that makes it worth the extra $1,500? That's what I want to know.
Commissioner Weigel? You're muted, sir.
Sorry, I was trying to lower my hand and then I'm muted. Okay. I want to just give support for what Commissioner Pinckney's saying, and also what I'm seeing in the chat room, and also what I'm hearing from Mr. Stephen from Petworth Blooms. That is a very large grant for us to grant as to award as our first one. I would disagree that having the flowers and everything else actually does have a direct effect on all of our daily lives. It really does improve your mood, your emotion, everything else. It improves the neighborhood. It improves people's decisions when they're walking in those spaces, and it looks nicer. I don't think that this isn't non-important work, but what I'm suggesting is that we do cap it at $2,000 and that we plan to work on a more frequent basis. Because Petworth Blooms is something that, you know, our environmental whatever cleanup committee, sorry, CC for botching that so hard. This is an area that we would work together really closely in, and it's something that Petworth Blooms could work together with our cleanup teams, clean up a space, get it ready for an actual gardening event.
Yes.
It just, I think that it's better to keep the conversation going and also not prevent the money from going as well.
Right.
But yeah, and I love that you're not against just completely freezing it, Commissioner Pinckney.
No.
Because it is important to keep funding it so they can still have the stream to be able to do it. But I don't think it's something that we can revisit this more than once a year.
Yes.
This is not something we have to just wait until blooming season, until et cetera. It's something we can table until a future discussion. And it's the more we talk about it, the more advantageous it's going to be for everybody in the neighborhood.
Yes, I agree. But also, let me share with you, City Blossoms, which has its place right on Kennedy Street. If we can connect them to you, because they go, even they work with the kids about creating flowering spaces within different spaces. There are quite a few organizations that work to do the same thing, and maybe I can help to put you guys together to maybe work something out. And I am totally for, because I love flowers, you know, give them all to me all the time. I'm for it. But I'm just thinking about, you know, a fiscal responsibility as well, and sharing the beautification with the rest of 4D. Those are the two issues I'm dealing with. Thank you.
Just procedurally then, Commissioner Weigel, are you proposing that we amend the motion to $2,000 instead of $3,500?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Lucarelli.
Okay, so commissioners, we're going to first vote to make that amendment, a change, and then we'll have another vote to see whether you actually approve or not approve of the motion. So first vote is we are voting to amend the resolution to approve of a grant of $2,000 instead of $3,500. So commissioners, when I call your name, please say aye or nay. Commissioner Pinckney?
Aye.
Commissioner Judson?
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli?
Aye.
Commissioner Cornelius?
Nay.
Commissioner Morensick,
Nay.
Commissioner Weigel,
Aye.
and I'll be an aye as well. So that will be the motion carries. So the grant has
sorry,
been amended.
I
Did
am
I-
also, I am also a nay.
Thank you. That still carries 2,000. The motion is amended to a $2,000 grant instead of a $3,500 grant. Commissioner George, did you have something that you wanted to say? I thought saw your hand raised before.
I was gonna speak out against this course of action, but we took the vote.
Commissioner Lucarelli, did you have your hand raised?
I did, but I think I forgot to lower it. Do we, as a matter of procedure, so I guess I'm just making sure I understood this correctly. So we moved to adopt a motion, but did we move to adopt it or did we move to amend it?
We moved to amend it. So now it's a $2,000 grant instead of a $3,500 grant. And so we'll take a vote on that. So any other last questions from commissioners before we vote?
Yes, I want to make sure it's like in the official record. The purpose of that is to keep the conversation going. I'm looking for like a smaller payment in a shorter amount of time so that we could possibly grant more money. In a short, like that's the purpose of it. I want to be sensitive to what Joy brought up, as well as a few of my own constituents who are direct messaging me during the meeting. So just want to make sure that's like typed in the notes too. Sorry to reiterate the same thing I already said.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so now we'll take a vote. The motion before us is a $2,000 grant for Petworth Blooms. Commissioners, when I call your name, please say aye or nay to approve or not approve of the grant. So Commissioner Pinckney,
Aye.
Commissioner Judson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Corniotis,
Aye.
Commissioner Morensick,
Aye.
Commissioner George,
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And so the motion carries $2,000 to Mr. Feingold. Mr. Feingold, thank you for all the planting that you do in our neighborhood. It really does have a positive impact and we're grateful for that. Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Okay, next item. And sorry to be rushing everyone, but it's quite late and I know we've got some important things that we have to get through tonight. So this next one is me. This will be very quick, I think, and hopefully non-controversial. National Links Foundation contacted me. They're a nonprofit organization. Basically, their goal is to clean up affordable public golf courses around the country. And their primary focus right now are the public golf courses in DC. So there's one in Rock Creek, there's one in East Potomac. They're in the process of applying for a grant through the DC Bonds program. So essentially they're asking the mayor's office for some money to clean up the park. And all they're asking from us is they want to include a letter in their application materials that basically says ANC says, we agree that cleaning up public golf courses is a good thing. They're not asking for any money from us. They're just asking for a letter that says we are happy that they're doing this work so they can include it in their grant application. Are there any questions from anyone? I will admit I'm not a golfer, so I can't tell you too many details about the golf itself, but I can try to answer questions.
This is Joy Pinckney. I move that we send a letter in reference to cleaning up the golf courses.
In support of cleaning them up?
In support of cleaning them up.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinckney. Can I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. I will take a roll call vote very quickly. All those in favor of signing this letter in support, say aye. Commissioner Pinckney.
Aye.
Commissioner Judson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli.
Aye.
Commissioner Corniotis.
Aye.
Commissioner Morensick.
As someone who uses Rock Creek Golf Course, yes, big time aye.
Commissioner George.
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel.
Aye.
And
And me and Marissa got to go golfing, but
there you go. And the motion carries. I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you all so much. Next up on the agenda, we have Commissioner George talking about Kansas Allison and 8th Street intersection. Commissioner George.
Thank you. I will try and make this reasonably quick. The intersection of Kansas Avenue, 8th Street, and Allison Street, which in part borders my SMD, it's across the street from E.L. Haynes School, is a very odd intersection that has a lot of features that make it dangerous, including multiple points of entry, some very long crosswalks for pedestrians. It's close to a school. It's next to bus stops, and there's just a lot of risk for pedestrians and cars and everyone else traveling through this intersection every day. I know it has been a long an intersection of focus for ANC 4C for a really long time, pre-redistricting and post-redistricting. It is now also in our commission, and we are trying to encourage DDOT to take a more aggressive approach and like a more blue sky approach at trying to improve safety at this intersections. So far, we just have not gotten much. I think there are people on this call who've been advocating about improving safety at this intersection for a very long time and could attest to kind of the slow pace of change and the need to keep pressing DDOT to try and rework this intersection into something that is a little more sane to travel through every day for parents, students, and others. ANC 4C passed a resolution last month that I signed on to that recommended 3 potential changes for DDOT to take a look at. One is curb extensions to shorten all the crosswalks in the intersection. Another is raised crosswalks to function as a speed bump and vertical traffic calming for cars driving through this intersection so that they slow down. There are a lot of cars that don't really bother to stop at the stop bars at all. And so a raised crosswalk might help to slow them down, even if they're inclined on proceeding through. And then the third was asking DDOT to install a median down the center of Kansas Avenue that would prevent cars from traveling through north-south or south-north on 8th Street or on Allison Street. Basically, cars entering the intersection from 8th or Allison would have to turn right on Kansas Avenue. They wouldn't be able to turn left or go straight. I've put this out for kind of comment from neighbors and also raised it with Commissioners Lucarelli and Morensic, who have been leading up our commission's transportation efforts, and drafted a resolution that slightly tweaks ANC 4C's approach. What the resolution that we're proposing would do, and let me put a link to it in the chat here, one sec. What the resolution that we're proposing would do, and it's got some red lines in here because it's a slight edit from the earlier version that we had drafted, would echo the endorsement of raised crosswalks and curb bump outs and curb extensions to try and shorten the crosswalks in the intersection. But in addition, as a slight change, would call for DDOT to propose concepts for more substantial redesigns, including potentially a median or a traffic light or rerouting 8th or Allison Street to be one way. I think we are more comfortable as an initial point advocating for DDOT to come back with some bigger ideas, but really like pushing them to make this an area of focus for them, and be creative and come back with some ideas to improve this intersection that we can comment on as a commission. Sorry for that long introduction. Commissioners Lucarelli or Morensic, you've been working with me on this. If you have any other things to add, all ears.
No, Amon, I think you did a good job here. As I intimated internally, and I'll just reiterate it in case that there's those from the public that support it. As a transportation planner in my day job, I coordinate a lot of these very types of things in the jurisdiction that I work for across the river. And I coordinate in doing so with various entities because government by nature is very collaborative. What I'm getting at is that we may get pushback, and I wouldn't be surprised from fire and EMS because this might be seen as sort of a critical intersection because of its proximity to a school. If there's a large alarm fire, they want to be able to perforate the site. I'm not saying that that's what they're going to say. I'm just saying it's potential feedback, and I expressed that with everyone internally, but I just wanted to reiterate it to the public. But obviously, I did the math. It really doesn't create that much of an issue. If you wanted to continue through, you'd simply just go down and turn left or right, to re-navigate. And so it really doesn't create I think the impacts to levels of service would be minimal, if any. And the exchange for that is making sure that children get to school more safely. And so for those reasons, I'll obviously support it because I, like many of you, begin and end every trip as a pedestrian. And so I want to make sure that we all get to where we're going safely. Thanks.
Questions from commissioners to start? I see a hand raised from Commissioner Pinckney.
Yes, good evening again. All right, there are multiple things. Can you scroll down on this document, please? All the way to the bottom. Okay. Okay, keep going. Or didn't it just sign? All right. First, I have a question. Did we see this particular document at our exec meeting?
No,
Pardon me?
no.
Okay.
This is the one that we voted on, I think, earlier, right? To include.
No, that's,
Oh,
that's the next
okay.
one.
No, this is something that has shown up and just got on my radar today.
There was a version of it sent last week.
Okay.
The thing that's new for today are the slight edits proposed here.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I cannot approve or go with any resolution presented to me that has strikeouts, that has edits. You know, earlier I got the copy of it that had empty spaces, wasn't filled in completely. So I'm inclined to say, no, I cannot approve on this right now, not until I get and see a final document. And I'm going to put a period right there.
I will note that there was a clean version sent out last week. And if you did not review it last week, that's fine. The version that I sent out today moves. Basically, like I know you're seeing some red and green here. A lot of that is just reordering. There are a few new words.
Sir, you, of all people, having your Harvard Law degree, you know the importance and implications, spoken and unspoken, about final documents. So I will not engage in this conversation with you. I'm just saying I will not sign on to be a part of a resolution that is not presented to me in its final space, asking me to agree.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinckney.
The red line there was for convenience, Commissioner Pinckney, because I suggested some changes from the original. I'm happy to send you a clean version. The draft is final. That was intended to be an acknowledgement that I had suggested some edits since the version that we had that I had initially circulated last week under the normal standing, in compliance with our normal standing rules. It was not intended to suggest that the draft was not final. It was intended to make it easier for other commissioners to understand the relatively small edit that I had proposed since the version that you had seen last week.
Okay, so I'm just trying to be clear then. So which version of the resolution from top to bottom am I to say is representative of what you want us to vote on?
It's this one.
Okay, so I haven't even had enough time to read it, compare it, and adjust it. So no, I cannot vote on it right now. So that's just my take. I'll yield to anyone else.
Commissioner Pinckney, did you review the version from last week? I can explain the small change that was made since then, if you feel like you had adequate time and opportunity to engage with that one.
Yes, I read it. However, this is against what we said we would do. We put in, because you're the main one talking about time, et cetera, we put these rules in for a reason. Now, I'm a commissioner who would love to put in some resolutions that would help my constituents. And sometimes I want to do it and I want to do it tomorrow so I can present it to everybody during the meeting. That's in essence what you're doing. And you're going around the rules that you were insistent that we make.
I did not make any rules, and
We all,
I don't believe that our rules say that
okay.
the
You know what?
resolutions can't be edited between the
You,
time
you,
that they're sent around in the
you're
meeting.
right, you're right. So I've asked my thing and I yield to everyone else. Thank you.
Other questions from commissioners?
Thank you, Commissioner George. I just have one question. I believe I read this when I reviewed this resolution. We also are proposing or advocating for DDOT to conduct another study. Is that correct?
That's the proposal, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's to come up with concept proposals for this intersection, yeah.
Okay. And also, I want to point us to Ms. Varsi's question. Ms. Varsi, do you want to ask your question?
That's okay, Ms. Varsi.
Okay.
I'm happy to respond to it. I saw it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Ms. Varsi is asking why recommend something different from what 4C recommended last month when they voted. I think that, and I was part of those discussions as well. My answer is that I kind of am fully on board with basically everything that 4C suggested, and our resolution largely echoes everything that they passed. The one tweak is, they suggested that they think the right design for that intersection is a median down the middle of Kansas Avenue. And so the change that I'm suggesting is that DDOT study that as a potential concept and present it to us to discuss further alongside other concepts. We got feedback from at least one constituent who was, I think, on this call that they, it would inconvenience their normal driving routes to put that in place, but also that they feared, and this seemed quite reasonable, that that would actually weaken some of the traffic calming in the intersection because traffic going straight on Kansas Avenue would no longer have to worry or stop or slow down for cross traffic on 8th and Allison. When Commissioner Morensic and I did a walkthrough of the intersection yesterday, we agreed that we just weren't 100%. We were not confident to say that that is absolutely what the right design for that intersection should be, especially because there are also utility access points in the middle of Kansas Avenue that might prevent you from being able to put in place a median down Kansas. So basically, it's a very similar set of recommendations, except a slight softening of that one to ask that DDOT come back to us with concepts that include that one, rather than necessarily saying 4D absolutely believes that that's the answer. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you. Other questions from other commissioners? Commissioner Pinckney, we'll get to you in a second, but I just want to make sure that others have a chance to speak who haven't spoken yet. Other questions from commissioners? Questions from the general public? Question from Commissioner Pinckney.
Okay, so you explained that, Commissioner. So then this resolution is not a resolution supporting and echoing what 4C put together. It is actually a different one because you're proposing different solutions. Is that not correct?
That's right. One of the things that 4C suggested, this resolution would approach differently. It endorses their other recommendations.
Okay, so then I don't say throw it away, but I just say give us an opportunity to really read it and massage it so that all of us can be in agreement. Because if it's not just supporting what the other commission has put out, then it's something new that we're saying, you know. I'm just saying, I don't understand why we have to agree on it right now without adequately reading it.
If that's your view, Commissioner Pickney, I understand it. I will say that I flagged that this was coming at our June meeting. I flagged it at our executive meeting. I sent around a draft resolution last week in accordance with our bylaws.
Right, but
The only thing and the only thing that has changed since then is that instead of saying it should be a center median, it now says ask DDOT to present concepts back to us, including potentially center median. That's the only thing that is at all new since what I have been announcing and telegraphing and sharing with you all for a month and a half.
Mhm.
And if that small piece is enough for you to say I have no notice and can't vote on this for 2 months, I understand. I don't think that's a great approach, but
yeah, no,
Commissioner
no,
Pigney, are you proposing to postpone the resolution to a later date? Because if that's the case, we can vote on that, but otherwise you can move forward with the vote on the resolution itself.
okay, I'm proposing, yes. I move that we postpone voting on this resolution until the resolution can be presented in its form, in its complete form, and written clearly where everyone can understand what is being said.
Is there a second?
wait, could we move to pass the resolution first? And if it fails, we can always.
No, because I'm amending it. You have to amend it. Oh, well, okay.
She's proposing to table the resolution until September, it sounds like. And so a commissioner can do that, but it has to be second. Is there a second?
Sorry, I guess my question is, why does that motion happen before a vote on the resolution itself?
Because
if the resolution passes, then it's not postponed, right? So she's
correct.
But that, so it would be a lot.
I'm just asking about like why the order.
Because it would be like saying, I propose that we spend $1,000 and somebody says, well, I propose that we wait till September to vote. But if we vote now on the $10,000, it's too late to postpone it till September, right? Does that make sense? Because that's what Commissioner Pickney is proposing, is that we postpone the vote that you're suggesting that we vote. Does that make sense?
I understand. I think that like my introduction of the resolution happened first, and we can vote on it. And if it fails, we can vote on something else in September, whether this, a revised version, this again after commissioners had an opportunity to read it, whatever this, but I guess I don't understand why the first motion isn't to vote on the resolution.
This document is not ready to present to me to say, Commissioner Pinkney, I want you to agree with me on this statement. It is not presented to me in its finished form. You would never go to a judge with a form looking like this, asking them
if I can
to
just ask you to
you.
hold on just a second, Commissioner Pickney, and we can get to the merits of the motion in a second, but Commissioner George is asking a procedural point of order. I believe Commissioner George, and I could be mistaken, but I believe that under Robert's Rules of Order, that when a member proposes a motion, another member can propose to postpone that motion to a later date. And that would be a majority vote from the commission to do that. So it's not voting against the resolution, it's just proposing to postpone the vote on the resolution. I believe that's the correct parliamentary procedure. I can pause this meeting and double check my Robert's Rules of Order if you'd like, but I believe that that's the process.
I will defer to the chair.
Okay.
It is presented this way purely for the convenience of the commission of the commissioners. It is not presented this way because it is not final. If I could have presented you with a non-red line version, and I didn't do that because it felt like it would be hiding the ball. This is intended to be transparency, not a non-final. Like this is for your benefit. That it shows the tweaks that were made since the version that I sent last week. And I actually think it's a good idea when we make edits after we send a resolution around to to highlight those edits rather than bury them and pretend like they weren't there.
So let's tackle one thing at
That's-
a time so we're not confused. So Commissioner Pinckney has proposed to postpone the vote on the resolution. Does anyone second that? Hearing no second, the motion dies. So the motion will be voted on at this meeting. It won't be postponed. Are there any further questions for Commissioners Georgia or Lucarelli about the motion? Commissioner Georgia, I just want to clarify very quickly for myself, because I feel like we've been talking a little bit in circles. I just want to make sure that I understand correctly that the main things that you're proposing are the extensions of the crosswalk. Is that right? Some stormwater. Could you just scroll down, Commissioner Lucarelli or Commissioner Georgia, really quickly so I could see it? Whoever has the screen.
Yeah, so the proposals are shortening the crosswalks at all the crossings using bulb outs. If you keep going, installing pedestrian refuges at the midpoints of the crosswalks in Kansas Avenue, converting the crosswalks into raised crosswalks, installing stormwater retention infrastructure wherever possible in the intersection, and then asking DDOT to study and propose concepts for further redesigns that would further simplify traffic patterns and improve visibility, including, as 4C recommended, a new center median or a traffic light or rerouting traffic, and presenting these concepts to ANC at 4D at a later date for community input and engagement.
Excellent. If there are no other questions or comments about the resolution from commissioners or from the public, then we will go ahead and move forward with a vote. So commissioners, when I call your name, please say aye or
And
nay.
just to clarify, this is
Yes.
the vote on the resolution with
The resolution
edits
itself.
accepted.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll hit accept and that will be the resolution.
Okay, commissioners, when I call your name, please say aye or nay. Commissioner Pinckney,
Nay.
Commissioner Judson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Cornelius,
Aye.
Commissioner Morensic,
Aye.
Commissioner George,
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well, so the motion carries. All right, next up, Commissioner George, I believe the next one is yours as well.
Yeah, this is another traffic safety resolution. As Zach Israel had noted in his community comments, there had been a TSI to install speed bumps on the 4800 block of 7th Street, which is 7th Street between Decatur and Emerson. It's an installation I strongly support because it is a long, straight downhill street that leads right into Sherman Circle. DDOT had initially said in March that they were moving ahead with installing speed bumps. However, after they got some negative feedback from 2 constituents, they said that they were instead going to just do signage and not install speed bumps. They never informed our commission of that. I just happened upon it when I was checking this down. So the TSI on the DDOT website, after engaging with DDOT, they said that they had gotten the impression that the community was not in favor of installing those speed bumps, which is why they had declined to push forward with it, but that if the community did in fact desire those speed bumps to be installed, and if 4D were able to pass a resolution to that effect, they would return to pushing forward with the speed bump installation. In the interim 5 days or so since we heard from DDOT, we've heard from, I believe, 12 community members who support the installation of the speed bumps. And I proposed this resolution that would reiterate to DDOT that the speed bumps are in fact desired by the community and they should go ahead with the installation as initially planned.
Questions for Commissioner George? Start with Commissioner Cornelius this time.
Hello, I have a couple of questions. One question is the positive feedback that we've received are in support of the installation of these speed bumps. Are they from residents that live in the block where these speed bumps would be installed? 1. 2, when we received the feedback regarding the installation of these speed bumps back in March, we received that feedback based on flyers that Commissioner George and I passed out to the affected residents in that block. And the 2 or 3 or however many residents who opposed the installation provided that feedback within the time frame that was allotted to the residents. And so the positive feedback that we're receiving, why was that not received during the comment period?
Okay, so there's 2 questions. The first question was whether the positive feedback we've heard about the speed bumps comes from people who live on the block. I believe that 2 of the 12 comments that we received are from people that live on that block. 2 of the supportive comments that we received are from residents who live on that block. And 1 is, I believe, a resident of one of these 4 houses on Decatur that are like right around the corner. I don't know how much weight you want to give that. But that's the answer to the first question. If it's who have we heard from on the block, we've heard from 2 residents in support of and 2 residents opposed to the speed bumps on the block. The second question, why did we not hear this feedback earlier? I can't say. I don't know. I don't know why the residents who supported it, who live on the block, didn't get in touch with us at that time. I will say, this time we put the call out for feedback more broadly than just the block, and a lot of the people that we heard from are people with a broader interest in slowing traffic down on that block, pedestrians who use Decatur Street and Sherman Circle, for whom a car speeding down 7th Street presents a risk to themselves or their families. We also heard multiple stories from residents who are supportive of the speed bumps of cars that had sped down that block, lost control, and crashed into Sherman Circle in recent years, which is a fairly scary development if you've ever looked at the park in the middle of the day and seen it crawling with little kids.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinckney, and then Commissioner Lucarelli. You're muted, Commissioner Pinckney.
Hi, please, I apologize this evening. I either sound like a broken record or I feel like I'm just anti whatever we're saying, but that is not the case. But in this case, I do not support this, mainly because it was set a precedence. Now, I remember when the issue and things came around about the pending speed bumps, whatever they're called. And I, for one, have received things from DDOT letting me know as the commissioner that they were planning on installing speed bumps. And I had to reach out and receive feedback from the neighbors who lived on that block. Well, Ms. CC and whomever else did the same thing in this case. She received timely the responses. And it just so happens that the responses she received were negative. They were forwarded to DDOT for this process. Because yes, DDOT received the request quite a few months ago, year ago, however months. But by the time they got to it, they involved us because they had to. Now they made their decision because I read exactly what they said, and they said that in consideration, and they were ready to do the speed bumps. So first they did their evaluation and their study, and they did not find that it was the traffic situation there was not such that they could override what the people who live there said about not wanting that speed bump on their street. So alternately, they put signage. Now, my concern is that the commission now, by doing this, trying to override what the residents said they wanted on their block, sets a precedence that says we think we can overturn and just do what we feel needs to be done. And I cannot stand by and go along with setting that type of precedence. The unfortunate thing is that the additional people either did not respond timely or they missed the deadline. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But for us to turn around and because we don't like the outcome, to try to override it and force it to happen, when the people who live there said they don't want the speed bump, so that's my bottom line. So I will vote against this action. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lucarelli.
My question's simple. I'm going to try to refrain from being pedantic. What are residents on this block opposing it for? And I ask this because, and I say this because just because someone opposes it doesn't mean that we have to go with it unless we know more. Well, for me, I'd like to know more about why they oppose it, because, you know, if the reason is I like to speed to get to the circle, then that's, you know, are we saying that we're in favor of that? I mean, just because the residents want something doesn't mean that they're right. And I think that the reason we're elected is to keep the government in check and to make sure that everyone, you know, that we're looking out for everyone's best interest. There's a person driving a car that crashes into this circle weekly. There's children that use it with their families. And by voting against slowing people down as they enter this park space, I think it sets a dangerous precedent. And so while, you know, the residents may not want it, I'd like to hear from them if they're here and have them clearly articulate why, because just being in opposition of something doesn't mean that we should just stand behind it. We need to, you know, I like to make fact-based decisions. And so I don't know, Mr. Chair, if we could call on anyone from the audience that's here that opposes it, because I haven't heard from anyone about what they're against it for. I just hear that they don't want it.
We will give the community an opportunity to participate. So thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Weigel.
I'm gonna echo what Commissioner Lucarelli said, and I'm really curious what a specific concern against the speed bump would be. I don't see any negative benefit from slowing cars down. Like, it doesn't affect parking, it doesn't affect space, it doesn't, I don't know. I don't see any negative benefit. I'm curious, I could learn though. I'm saying I'm open to it. But I would love to see what the specific complaints were.
I will say, just from my own experience, we put in a speed bump on my block a year or two ago. There were some neighbors who were against it initially. Their primary concern was about losing parking spaces. And years ago, speed bumps were built a lot higher. And so those were legitimate concerns years ago. But when I explained that they make them differently now, so speed bumps now are made lower, a little bit wider, so they don't impede a car's ability to park there.
They're crowned on the edge. Yeah.
They're crowned on the edge. The neighbors who were initially opposed dropped their opposition once they sort of understood that that was not actually going to be an issue. So that was, at least in my experience, a concern that people had that actually didn't turn out to be anything that they needed to be concerned about. Are there any neighbors here tonight who want to speak out about that issue? We'll get to you in a second, Commissioner Pinckney, but first, any neighbors? Commissioner Pinckney?
Yes, so if you're really concerned about why they don't want them, then why not table this resolution until we're able to find out why?
Just so I understand, Commissioner, are you proposing to table the resolution? Like,
I mean, if that's the only thing that you all want to know to keep you from overriding what they said they want, because technically they really don't have to. They answered the call that DDOT put out for them to have a voice about having or not having speed bumps. Alternatively, they put signage up. Okay, speed bumps don't necessarily stop the speeding. And this, you know, so you all want to know why they don't want the speed bumps. then why not wait before doing a resolution from the whole commission to find out why and or to figure out something that's going to work for everybody?
Thank
But to
you.
me, for us to go after the decision has been made by DDOT and they have notified, well, they have done it and moved on, just to override what these people are saying, and they responded timely. See, the people that agree with you did not respond timely. And in the world, you snooze, you lose. Okay, and so now because it didn't come out the way you wanted it to, you want to override and circumvent what your neighbors said they didn't want. So if you really believe that this is something that needs to happen, then I vote, I vote that, or I suggest we table this until the next meeting to give everybody a chance to see why these people don't want the speed bumps on their street.
Commissioner George?
Just to the point of why they don't want speed bumps on their street, I did circulate all the emails that we received, including the 2 that we received from people opposed to the project. So one resident called them unnecessary and complained about limited parking, a tight street and a sinkhole in the street. Another resident also complained about a sinkhole and I think inconvenient parking. Commissioner Corniatis and I connected earlier this week and agreed that, you know, if we were to go ahead with encouraging DDOT to install the speed bumps, that it could be worthwhile to reach back out to these neighbors and explain to them that even if DDOT installs these speed bumps, it's not going to impact those concerns of, you know, whether it's going to impact parking, as Chairman Karate mentioned, it will not impact parking availability on the street. It's not going to change the width of the street, and it doesn't change the ability of DDOT to fix sinkholes and potholes on the street. So I think the only thing I've really heard from either neighbors that one called it unnecessary.
Yeah, but still,
Can I ask you to pause, Commissioner McPinkney, just so we can make sure that other people have a chance to speak first, then we'll get back to you. Commissioner Marensik.
Hi, yeah, I think we're just going around in circles at this. So is it timely for me to move to call the question using Robert Rules of Order, close debate, and vote on this matter as it is?
I put a motion on the floor to take, well, okay.
I'm doing a separate, this is a motor to call the question. So I need to be seconded for that, and I believe I need a 2/3 vote.
Well, I have unreadiness, which makes the conversation stop until I sufficiently understand what we're doing. So I call for unreadiness. And why I'm ready, I'm unready is because what we're about to vote on is wrong. You don't just overlook what our constituents said they didn't want on their block because
Chair,
we commission don't agree.
Yes, if I can just interrupt you, Commissioner Pinckney, for a second. So what Commissioner Marensik is doing is he's proposing a motion to close the debate, which he's allowed
I
to do.
understand that, but according to Robert's rules, and an acknowledgement of unreadiness stops anything you're trying to do until I completely satisfied or understand what you're trying to do. And
Well, what is the point of order, Commissioner Pinckney, that you're asking about?
I'm asking about the why of what we're doing here. The why of what we're doing here has nothing to do really about controlling of the traffic, because DDOT put up the signage that's necessary for traffic calming, which was the next thing they could do.
So Commissioner Pinckney, I'm going to rule that that's not a point of order, that's a question about the merits of the resolution, which I think is a fair point.
Readiness, but okay, yeah, you all go ahead. You all go ahead.
And so Commissioner Marensik is voting to, or asking to vote to close the debate, to move. And so he has to require 2/3 of the commissioners to vote on that. And so commissioners, when I call your name, please just say whether or not you vote to agree to close the debate. For
Was
final
was
vote.
there a second? I want to make sure.
Oh,
I'm
yeah, sorry,
following.
thank you. Is there a second to close the debate?
Second.
Okay, so commissioners, when I call on you, please just say aye on whether or not you agree to close the debate. Commissioner Pinckney,
No,
Commissioner Judson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli,
Aye.
Commissioner Corniotis,
No,
Commissioner Morensik,
Aye.
Commissioner George,
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So that closes the debate so we can move to vote on the question itself. So the question before us is the resolution as proposed by Secretary George. And this is a resolution regarding speed bumps on 7th.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
At the bottom of the resolution, that last paragraph, I'm sorry, I cannot agree with it, where it says that.
We've closed debate at this point. We're voting
I'm
as
not
is now.
debating, I'm talking about the actual document itself that we are voting on. I'm not debating the issue. I'm talking about the written document. At the bottom,
What is your question, Commissioner
paragraph.
Pinckney?
I need that last paragraph taken out.
I'm afraid it's too late for that so that you can vote against it, but we're past the point of being able to vote to amend the resolution at this point because we closed the debate on it. So the commission voted to close the debate, which means there's no more changes or amendments to the
The wording at the
resolution.
bottom, giving Commissioner Amon sole ability to talk about this issue from now on, where we as a commission won't be contacted as a whole.
So
That's not okay.
So the part of Commissioner Amon's proposal is that he be designated by us as a committee to represent us in this matter with Judge
No.
Hudak.
Okay,
So commissioners, so that the resolution is before us. When I call your name, please say aye or nay. Commissioner Pinckney,
no,
Commissioner Judson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lucarelli,
So moved.
Commissioner Corniotis,
nay,
Commissioner Morensik,
Aye.
Commissioner George,
Aye.
Commissioner Weigel,
I love speed bumps.
and I am an aye as well, so the resolution carries.
okay, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can I ask the secretary to write? And I can send him the text as to why, but I need it to be put in the minutes and on the record as to why I am not in favor of this and do not support this resolution. And it is contrary to everything that we're supposed to be about.
so noted. Thank you, Commissioner Pinckney. With that said, that wraps up everything on the agenda item. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The July meeting of 4D is hereby adjourned. So thank you all. Have a good night. Talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
See you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Have a good night.